At this time, I'd ask everyone to please remove your hats. We're going to all stand. Mr. Harris is going to give an invocation, and we'll do a pledge to allegiance.
Your phones as well, please.
Phones are on vibrate or off, please.
O ruler of the universe, thank you for our unique form of democracy in Lake Placid. Please guide us, both citizens and council, as we try to do the best for Lake Placid. Amen. Amen. Flags over there. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I have a whole list of people that want to talk. But what I'd like to do, how many are here from Sunset Point? Okay. Do you all have a representative here? How about Lake June Point? Okay. How many from Lake June Point? Okay. I know you've got a representative here. I don't know what other ones would be involved.
Placid Lakes?
Placid Lakes. Yeah, I know they're here. They're good force. All right, very good. The reason I bring that up, a lot of these are all saying that they have concerns or questions. We're going to go through this presentation. Kevin's going to take over here in a minute. Hopefully most of your questions will be answered by then. What I don't want is 90 people coming up here asking the same questions. If you have a representative from your subdivision, try to get with them, get the questions that you need answered, and our staff, our engineers, we've got some different people here that will be able to answer your questions. But let's go through the presentation first, and then we'll open it up for discussion. And I understand that we have a PowerPoint, so we'll do that first and see what that involves. So I'll ask Marlene Barger to come up.
Mayor.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, we need to do roll call.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Mayor Hardbrook,
I'm here.
Councilmember Royce,
Here.
Councilmember Wilson,
Here.
Councilmember Sapp,
Here.
Councilmember Hayes. Here.
Okay. You ready? You ready? While she's doing that, as people are speaking, I'm going to ask each of you to sit and listen. We don't need any discussions in the back. There will be no interruptions.
Yeah. Eva, I don't want that up yet.
Oh, you don't want that?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for calling tonight's special meeting so government officials and citizens can exchange information. We have heard and will hear.
Try to speak right into it.
We will hear, hopefully, we will hear a lot of good points from citizens as well as the council. I worked for the federal government for 30 years. One thing I learned is that government identifies a problem and then offers one solution, and is quick to shut down ideas for any other solution. It takes heroic efforts and perseverance to break through that mentality. A perfect example of that is the COVID virus. The government made the decision to shut down most businesses and schools, some as long as 2 years. Any and all challenges to that mandate were quickly shut down and labeled misinformation. The shutdown did irrefutable damage to the economy. Many businesses did not return. Damage to kids, tens of thousands of kids were out of school for 2 years, and we don't know how much damage that did to their learning cycle. The one COVID solution proved to be the wrong answer. So, we now declare our lakes to be a vulnerability. What is truly astonishing and ironic, we plan to use COVID money to mandate another one solution answer. Ultimately, unfortunately, septic systems or septic tanks do not address the water infiltration from lawn fertilizers, treatments containing phosphate, waste from water animals and farm animals, fallen trees, sediment accumulation, pH imbalance and erosions, and general contamination. The number one concern that I have is to test the lakes, all around all lakes, with many different tests to determine where the infiltration and the contaminants are. So we have some policy and some review of what needs to be fixed. And I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. Most significant drawbacks I see to the plan of having, whether it's a gravity system or a low pressure system, are above. The low pressure systems have all kinds of problems. In addition to the costs they initially talked about, there are other costs that are related to it. Whoops. Most significant drawbacks are as stated above. If there's a household emergency, it's going to happen on Christmas Eve, or Thanksgiving, or your wedding anniversary, or a big wedding at your house. Major power outages could cause a major catastrophe in the system and damage the lakes, which is what we're trying to not do. There are alternate solutions. Look at our lakes. Once we know where the lakes are, we ought to talk about aerating our lakes. There's a lot of information out there about doing this, and a lot of reasons for doing it. It gives clarity, it improves the water quality, and all the things listed there. I don't need to mention them to you. It lowers nutrients. I did a lot of research online and saw multiple cases of even large lakes where they did this. Modern on-site septic systems is another solution. It's not another solution, but it's a solution that says, I'm going to go through this here quickly, what is a septic system? And some of the new components, and some of these are probably being put in today compared to the old systems. I had the concrete tanks, they're no longer the best system to use. Some of the advantages and the advantages here of the septic system over the sewer systems are listed here. And I guess the most important one is the spillage. It's then contained on one property and that property owner. One of the things that concerns me about a sewer system, if you think about our recycle system, many people could not get it correct. Many people were putting boxes in the glass cases where glass should be, and they were mixing up all their components that were supposed to be recycled and didn't get it right. And so what happened? They stopped doing it and came up with another process. The concern that I have, if the neighbor pushes things down their septic system, it's their problem. If they push it down the sewer system, it's everybody's problem. Care and maintenance, and I have some documentation of this, and I'm going to give to Eva. The EPA has a list that's cited, it's mentioned here. This is how to improve and work with the septic systems that are online. I took a look online and looked at a lot of the homes on Lake June Road, some of which are 50-foot lots, have been there for 50, 60 years. So my question would be, how healthy are those septic systems and what needs to be done to improve them? And there's a site that you can go to get your ideas, and I hope, one thing I would ask the town to do is to actually print that material and send it to all homeowners so that people who have septic systems will know how to treat them and take care of them. Thank you. And again, Mr. Mayor, one of the solutions that I have, and we've done this before, is to have an advisory committee to take a look and work with the town council and others to look at sewer, septic, water, and the whole 9 yards and decide what to do. Because we have $40 million doesn't mean we have to have a one solution. We may have multiple solutions, and we need to be addressing that if we're going to be good citizens and take care of our lakes. Thank you.
Okay, just real quick before I introduce myself, like everybody, we got a number of presentations. We're going to hear from A to Z, start to finish. of how we got through the project. We're going to hear about the wastewater treatment plant. I know most of you are here just for the sewer portion of that, but you need to know where we're going and where we've been. Sorry, I'll talk into the mic. Okay, sorry. So we're going to kind of go through A to Z, so from where we started to where we got today, so everybody can understand. So just for everyone else's, my name's Kevin McCarthy. Let me do this. I'm, as of last Monday night, the town administrator and utilities director. I have a Bachelor of Mechanical Engineering from Villanova. I spent 10 years as the utilities director for the city of Clewiston. So you see that we had did a 200 home septic to sewer conversion project, which involved low pressure and grinder pumps. And then 7 years as the director of operations for Henry County Schools. So we had 10 schools, 2 lift stations, 15 grinder stations. So I'm familiar with both systems intimately. So why the project? So a number of years ago, anyway, Lake Placid was included in the Lake Okeechobee BMAP. Most of this information can be found on our website, which we put this in last week, so it's fairly new. If you go to Save Our Lakes Project, FDEP has designated the Lake Placid as impaired. There's a water quality study specifically for the Lake June watershed that you can find on the website that addresses many of the issues about where the nutrients come from. We've had algae blooms on the lake as recently as, March of this year. And I think one of Joe's pictures that you'll see in a little bit is one I took that on the canal leading out from Placid Lakes. And then there's House Bill 1379, the Clean Waterways Act, and that is also on our website. So for everybody to know, I live at 120 Lime Road Northeast. So I'm in Placid Lakes, and so I'm not trying to propose anything, or there's nothing proposed that was going to affect me any different than the rest of you. So it's not me or any of us trying to do something to you. These are just a list of all the town meetings where the agenda was specifically listed as a item to talk about the grant. And then the next 4 slides are the newspaper articles that Mr. Guerrero wrote about the grant. So if, for those, if you don't know anything about it, you need to start reading the newspaper or pay attention a little bit on the town website. But we'll host another one of these when we have more information down the road. So this is not the only town meeting that you'll hear about. We did do a mail out in October of 22. A number of you remember that because it was the one we told you that the surveyors would be surveying the front of your property. It also asked you to log on to the website and list some contact information so that we can send you information. So unfortunately, we only had 312 responded, so please take the time to register on the website. Go on the website, list your name, email, address. We will be sending out additional information. The website is our town website. You go to the Town of Lake Placid website. We mailed out 1,683 letters. If you did not get that. Okay, well, we did have 144 letters returned. So if you were in that 144, I don't know. So, but at least moving forward, you're here tonight, so moving forward, you can register on the website. And again, it's just another way that we can try and keep you up to date. So the website is the Town of Lake Placid's website. So if you Google Town of Lake Placid, I can put it up later, or you can come by at the end of the meeting and we'll give you the Town of Lake Placid website. The Town of Lake Placid website. Why is it? All right, the next thing we're going to do is, this is a presentation that Joe Barber did for the Lake June Property Owners Association. It's just a recap. He's going to do the same exact web presentation, and after that, we'll have our engineers do presentations. So I'll turn it over to Joe Barber.
Where is it, Kevin?
You want me to get it for
Oh,
you?
this is,
Hold on, I'll get it.
who's running it?
Joe, I'll get it.
Okay.
There you go. All right, you got it.
All right, I am Joe Barber. I'm the former town engineer. I was around when lots of these decisions were made and when the project kind of first began. This is my hometown. I want everybody to know I've lived here since I was born. I've been here my whole life. So I'm here to explain the process and kind of how we got to where we are. First off, I think we've already talked a little bit about what the problem is that this grant is really trying to solve. And it's water quality issues within our lakes. To be more specific, it's blue-green algae. There's been lots of that in the news. We'll talk about it a little bit more, but this is a really distinct picture of some really gnarly blue-green algae. There has been a noticeable water quality decline in Florida's rivers and lakes. A couple years ago, there's been lots of press coverage about the Caloosahatchee and St. Lucie rivers. A lot of that was claimed to have been coming out of Lake Okeechobee. Obviously, we've had reduced water clarity. I grew up on a lake. Unfortunately, that lake I grew up on, you can't hardly see to the bottom anymore. I've seen it in all of our lakes, and I think anybody who's been here for any amount of time can attest to that. There's obviously, with this blue-green algae, we'll talk a little bit about the aquatic impacts to aquatic and human life. And then when these are tested, like when we actually have blue-green algae blooms, DP has a program in which they've now been reporting online. You can go and see the dashboard and actually see the tests they've been pulling out of our lakes. Multiple of those tests have reported having toxic blue-green algae. There's two types, one that's not toxic and one that is. It's not always the same, but there has been a couple tests where our local lakes have tested positive for toxic blue-green algae. Unfortunate part of that fact is that boiling the water will not remove those toxins either. When those tests come back, the health department usually issues a do not swim order. I know our actual local public beaches have been shut down numerous times for this, as well as testing fecal in our water. So it is proving a real impact to our actual swimming areas and boat ramps in our lakes. Okay, now I'm going back. A little bit of an explanation on how this happens. Algae is obviously a plant that all plants need sunlight, nutrients, and water. So obviously this lives in water, it's got that, and needs sunlight and nutrients. The nutrients come in the form of nitrogen, phosphorus, that are discharged from multiple sources. We'll talk about that a little bit more. When the algae blooms actually die, that's what causes low dissolved oxygen in our water and causes fish kills. So the actual algae itself is not what's killing fish, it's the death of this algae that then the bacteria eat it and they consume oxygen as they're doing that. Some of the major contributors to nutrients in our water bodies are fertilizer and animal-human waste. And then also these nutrients are obviously, you fertilize your yard and stormwater eventually transports it directly into the lake and through percolation. Here's another picture of some blue-green algae. I guess a question. These are some Florida pictures, but I'm fixing to show you some specific Lake June picture. But I guess let's show of hands, who has seen blue-green algae anywhere? Okay, so lots of us. All right, one of the reasons why DP is putting lots of money into septic to sewer conversions is because of this flowways map. So we talked about a lot of the press coverage that happened in the Caloosahatchee and St. Lucie rivers. If anybody knows of Captains for Clean Water, that group was really formed, multiple activist groups formed because they were getting dirty water coming out and polluting their own waterways. Well, this is the flowway that then eventually hits Lake Okeechobee. So we are in the drainage basin in which everything we do here eventually flows downstream and out of basically 3 outlets. So it either goes out to Caloosahatchee, which is west of Lake Okeechobee, or it goes out east, out to St. Lucie, or it gets discharged through the Everglades system. Obviously, the Everglades has plenty of plant material to suck up nitrogen and phosphorus, but these other two rivers, it's kind of a straight shot. So part of the DEP's goal is to reduce these from coming upstream. By the time it's hit really the outlet of the Caloosahatchee or St. Lucie rivers, that problem occurred much farther upstream. So we are in the drainage basin, which affects everyone in that area, and one of the reasons why DEP is very heavily pursuing grant funds for septic to sewer conversions, because anything we can do to clean up in our area will ultimately clean up the downstream as well. This is, you can go look it up on, this is actually South Florida Water Management District, but they have a good informational pamphlet on blue-green algae and how it's caused. My eyes aren't good enough to read it, but it's on the PowerPoint. I'm sure Kevin could probably put this online so it's available to everyone. And they definitely talk about septic tanks versus public systems. They encourage fertilizing responsibly, doing Florida-friendly planting, and then they also talk about what I just mentioned about Lake Okeechobee, how, you know, we are the big tap in this diagram, and then it comes out the two rivers. So anything we can do, reduce it to flowing into Lake Okeechobee is DEP's and the Water Management District's goal. This is the algae dashboard that I spoke of earlier, and obviously this presentation was prepared quite a while ago. I'm sure this has been updated since then, and I could take you to it and look, but if anybody's interested, you can go and look and see the actual tests that they've been taking. They normally do this at the public boat ramps, as you can see there, and down in Lake Placid, and there have been more since this slide was prepared. And these are positive hits, just for the record. This is in Lake June. This was a picture. As you go in that dashboard, you can actually go and see the picture that occurred when they were taking these tests. So this was in Lake June, and that looks just as gnarly as some of the other pictures we were looking at before. I grew up here, and I have never seen this until the last, 5, 6, 7 years. It's becoming much more prevalent. This is in Lake Placid, so that was another one of those positive hits that tested for blue-green algae. And all these, plus the more recent tests they've been doing, are on that DEP dashboard if anybody's interested. Here are the news articles. Kim Moody wrote one talking about how the Department of Health cautioned about algae blooms, and they also closed a boat ramp on Lake Grenada, which is not our lake, but they seem to be happening in our area as well. Here is the health department issue that they addressed. Somebody's running my mouse. The health department advises you should not drink, swim, wade, or ski in activities where you can come in contact with these visible blooms. So it's obviously something that would affect our tourism, our lake health for humans, and aquatic life as well. This is a list of articles, and it's just a really short list, and I can click on them and take them to you, but there's been extensive research that's been done on these actual blooms, trying to determine the factors, especially after the Caloosahatchee and St. Lucie River issues. I'm not a chemist by any means, but I can tell you my brief understanding that they are able to go and isolate things in the water and prove that it is coming from septic or septage material. It could be a septic tank, or it could be a sanitary sewer overflow, which doesn't happen very regularly. And they find things like, because you can test for fecal matter, which is really what's happening and getting into the waterways, but the question is it human or animal? Well, animals don't take aspirin. Animals don't take lots of these pharmaceuticals that they find in conjunction with the fecal matter. They've also been able to actually go and do genetic testing now and prove that it is human waste. So DEP is using all this information, and it is their big push in order to do septic tank to sewer conversions. And these are just some of the articles. So I think FAU has done a lot of work. If you're interested, go Google some of the studies FAU has done. They've been all over the state and been doing some of these tests like that to show. Yes.
Is this issue with the Yankee related to the homes on the lakes? Because I'm not on the lake. I am not contributing to that particular issue. Are we talking about fixing the problems that are related to the people that live on the lake and maybe fixing their whatever system, their septic tank or whatever it is, rather than, not penalizing, but spreading the problem to everybody else that doesn't have that issue, that is not responsible for that problem?
And I guess I need to make one comment. If you're not on one of the canals in Placid Lakes, then you're probably not part of the project, which may be why you did not get a letter. So if you're on the canals in Placid Lakes, then you're part of the project. If you're on the lakefront in Placid Lakes, you're part of the project. So the project is almost entirely lakefront homes or canal homes.
Yeah, I'll summarize, and I would ask that we hold questions until the end, because we will be here all night, and I'll never get through I'll address your question, but just respectfully. Yeah, I understand, but we'll never make it through our presentation. So to address that one question, you really have to understand aquifer hydraulics and understand how anything we do on this superficial aquifer eventually affects our lakes. So the aquifer right below us is really an underground river that your home, we all live on sand. It just takes it a little bit longer to make its way to the lakes. So anything we do in our basin and to clean it up will help. The homes on the lakes, it obviously gets there much faster, and I'll show you a diagram as to kind of how that happens. But in that same diagram, I'll show you how even the houses up on the ridge can contribute. It's just how long does it take to get there. But after a house has been there for 20, 40, 50 years, your stuff you did 20 years ago is now making it there, and it's a constant stream still providing. So actually those houses we clean up will continue contributing for years to come until it's eventually cycled out. But the important thing is we clean them up now as we're able. And again, I encourage everybody to take a look at some of these articles, because they are very interesting, and the methods in which they are proving that it is human waste that is in some of these water streams. This is a map of the septic tanks that are in Lake Placid as reported by the health department. HDR did a study on Lake June, which also I can give you the link to, and this is the map that they came up with septic tanks. So you can see if we're trying to get septic tanks and convert them to advanced treatment, there's a massive concentration here, as well as around Lake Placid. This is just kind of informative. So the study done by HDR identified 3 major contributors: non-point source, septic systems, and fertilizers as contributing nitrogen or nutrients into Lake June. They actually even gave an estimate as to just repairing those septic tanks, what that would help. And I don't have the efficiencies committed to memory, but I think everybody needs to understand that this new plant that we are designing is, Jeff, what is it, 96 some odd percentage removal on?
In excess of 95%.
Yeah.
CPOD, total nitrogen.
Right, so let's just, we're gonna, for those non-technical in the room, we're gonna call it 95% removal. A failing septic tank is 15, 20% removal, and a good working one is, what, 50? Yeah, so we're talking about with taking a septic tank and putting it onto our new wastewater treatment plant will remove twice as much nutrients as even a brand new well-functioning septic tank. So the argument that septic tanks are acceptable is not really allowable to DEP. There's new legislation that's come out, and that's how we've received funding to try to convert these septic tanks over, because it has a much higher removal efficiency. And this is just a study where they kind of went and summarized that. Some of the only other things you can do to remove nutrients out of later are a fertilizer ordinance. Obviously, that's free. constructed wetlands. So I've worked on a couple of these on some other projects, and we're talking about obtaining massive amounts of land and building a wetland and then routing the water through that wetland. So you can imagine the cost of that. That's, for our small town, is not super feasible, nor do we really have the land and want to give that up. Lehigh Acres did a wild constructed wetland, if you'd ever like to go see that. And they turned into a park, and it was a massive, massive project. But they were forced to clean up their water. So that was that among the septic tank sewer conversions. That didn't get them enough. They had to do even more. Some of the other things you can do are obviously floating wetlands, which as you recreate in the lake, I don't think we want those either. Septic tank and failing assessments, so they just looked at just repairing septic tanks. Well, what we're doing is getting rid of them. So this removal efficiency you can probably double. And then filters. I think we saw a diagram of a septic tank. This is kind of how it goes in. It holds the sludge and the effluent, which this is not technically, it's not really clear water. It still holds quite a bit of effluent, nutrients in the effluent, and then it goes out and is basically just dispersed underground to then flow into the aquifer. Here's the diagram that I was talking about. So here's your septic tank. The effluent, which is the water that comes off of that, especially on homes near the lake, it only has to travel a couple of feet, and it's in the water table. So everybody understands this water table is basically where the lake level is. It's that same level underneath your house if you live on the lake, essentially. So all it has to do is travel that distance to get in the water table. And aquifers move, they don't stay the same. So that water is moving. Lots of times it's moving through the lake. It's basically an underground river. Now, the houses who are not on the lake do the same thing, but as you can see, it would take longer for them to be transported to an actual lake water body and us to be able to test and find that. But they still do contribute. All right, the solution. There's two things we can do. We can remove the nutrients after they're in the lake, or we can stop the nutrients from going into the lake. Removing them before they get in the lake, obviously we talked about reducing fertilizer. I think everybody in this room should be aware of your fertilizer usage is an extreme contributor to nutrients in the lake. Septic tank inspections, and then septic tank conversions to sewer. So those are the options we have to take nutrients out of or before they get to the lake. After they're already in the lake, we're playing catch up, and we're trying to remediate that situation now. So you can do floating wetlands, constructed wetlands, offline ponds, or structural methods filters. These are all massive, massive earth projects that would be difficult to accomplish. All right, let's talk about our actual project. DEP awarded the town a grant of $40 million to construct a new advanced wastewater treatment plant and do septic to sewer conversions. The goal of that, obviously, I've said it over and over, is to reduce nutrient loading to lakes by removing septic tank discharges and connect existing and new homes to this new advanced wastewater treatment plant. We gave preference to homes on and near water bodies, and then we have one project that was really shovel-ready. And we presented that to DEP as a project that was, I already had plans for that, and it was ready to go. So that was the one project, to Kevin's point, that is not on the lake, but I think it's important to understand anybody in this area, we all still contribute to the problem. All right, this is the original map that was submitted when we received grant funds. So this was the shovel-ready, we're calling it Southtown. There's a line that goes around Lake Placid. We have Highway Park, Sun and Lakes, Placid Lakes, and Lake June Point, and we wrapped as far as we could around Lake June Point. After we worked with our library of consultants, and I want everybody to know we have multiple consultants working on this, and not just one. They came back with cost estimates. We tried to figure out what we could do with this $40 million, and due to that, Sun and Lakes and Highway Park were cut off of the project list. Mostly due to construction costs, and Highway Park wasn't as directly on a water body and was not shovel ready.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but what was that yellow line going around the south end of Lake June? Around to Placid?
All right, so we're getting technical. The yellow lines are force mains that'll be designed. The green lines are the actual collection mains.
That is still part
Yes, sir. Yeah, because these houses here, we've got a pump, and we have to pump it to our wastewater treatment plant, which is here. So that, all these lines you see are part of what should be going in.
One more question, please. I don't see anything west of Placid Lakes Boulevard. There's nothing there included in this?
No, again, this only affects homes on the lake and on canals. If you're on the west side, you will not be affected by this at all.
Yeah, we had to, I mean, we can't do everything, so we made some decisions internally with staff and talking with our utility, and these were the decisions that were made, so, I really have to ask if we hold the questions till later, I'll never get done, but, obviously, this plan has 1,550 homes able to connect. I think it's important to understand, I gave council the ability, we put these out for design in order to just get those force mains in the road. So council has a decision later as to if they want to maybe cut a project and have more to fund for other things, I don't know. But at this point in time, the construction estimates show that we would only be getting the force mains in the road. We looked at gravity versus pressure design, and we have our consultants here that are going to do a better job of explaining that than I am. But part of the driving factor was we'd get 1/2 to 1/3 the amount of actual connections. And I think it's important to understand that gravity sewer systems really work best at the time of development. Here, almost all of these are retrofit of existing homes, existing roads. So most of these projects, the road would have to be torn up completely. That's why Sun Lakes got cut, which Marvin can talk a little bit about, but it'd be lots of road reconstruction work, and typically as operating a utility, you don't really want gravity sewer systems below the water table just because of future water intrusion issues. So we have our consultants here to talk technical with you as to why these design decisions were made, but putting a gravity system under the water table is problematic in the future for the utility as well. Obviously, we chose pressure design for the lakefronts, which means each home will need an underground tank and pump in order to connect. The approximate cost for the actual connection, and so that's just the tank and the pump for each house is about $10,000. So I'm just giving you the cost. That's a council question for me to not answer.
Please refrain from speaking out, be respectful to the speaker. Each person will be given their time to speak.
Yeah, I expect these questions are going to be asked as soon as I'm done, so please allow me just to get done. This is a picture of the grinder pump station, which we have the reps here tonight to also answer any questions. So essentially, this is the well that holds, and then this is the actual pump. What's neat about these is they have quick disconnects, so if there is any problem, it should take a technician a few minutes to come in and swap these out. It's not a very hard process. All right, this is kind of a picture of what it looks like installed. So you have a small thing, looks like this about in your yard, could easily be concealed. All right, a little bit of the specs. It's a 100-gallon capacity. It operates at about 80 PSI and be one pump per home with a factor of safety 2. So that means this pump could really handle double what your house would put out. One of the selling factors is there's no floats, so it has an internal pressure switch. It's all kind of a contained, sealed unit. We talked about it has quick disconnects, and it's a grinder pump. So I think we had a demonstration of some of the stuff this thing will grind, and I have to warn everybody, just try not to make it grind anything. But it's a pretty robust pump, and that if something does get flushed down, it will usually handle it. They've advised us kitty litter, things like that, sand will stop it up, but just don't dump kitty litter down the drain, and you should be fine. These pumps have an alarm panel, so if there is anything that happens to them, the alarm goes off, alerts you, lets you know something's issues, and you need to get that resolved. They can be run with a small gas-powered generator if needed. There's an actual plug receptacle right on the panel where you can plug in a generator and pump it down and be fine. It's also important to note that the lid elevation of these is not going to be above your finished floor. So what that means is that you won't have any backups into your house if anything happens to this. And that's important when it gets put in, that the utility check that and make sure. They are repairable, so I think Randy will talk a little bit about it, but 10 to 15 years until it needs a repair, and that repair is usually just a sleeve that gets put back in, and it's good to keep on going. So it's just really a wear item that needs to happen after a pretty long service life. Progress update, this is a little bit old now, but I think we've pretty well talked about it. We're already at 90% plans for the advanced wastewater treatment plant. We're at about 60% plans for the rest of the projects. The next steps are to get those plans finalized, obtain permits from DEP, and then those projects will all go out to bid, hopefully at the same time, so that council can make some decisions as to which ones they want to go with, and they'll have enough cost information to make some of the hard decisions. And that was my goal, was to get them enough projects to make sure the money can be spent, and some of these decisions that you guys have questions on have not been made yet. And when those bids come back, they'll be able to have the information in order to make those decisions. Well, that's the end of my presentation.
All right, again, we're going to be answering a lot of these questions through the presentation, so hold your questions. If you have a question, write it down, come up, fill out a request to speak, or ask those questions. But a lot of those are going to be asked through the program, and a lot of them are going to be answered before we get to the end of the program. So, next up, we're going to go through the wastewater treatment plant. This is going to be Roger Pannoni, PE from Pannoni and Associates. So you get an idea of what we're building and where the bulk, let's say, I think the estimate is about half of the money is going to go is into the advanced wastewater treatment plant. So, Roger.
Good evening. Again, my name is Roger Hellman with Pannoni Engineers. And
Speak into it, please.
my name is Roger Hellman with Pannoni Engineers. With me is Jeff McKinney. He's actually the design engineer for this project. A little bit of background about Pannoni.
You gotta get close.
A little bit of background about Pannoni. We've been a town engineer since at least 2002. I've done projects with the town since 2002 myself. Jeff's been an engineer. He's a professional engineer for over 10 years. Our role in this project, overall project, is we were assigned the design of the wastewater treatment plant, and also another project which is to transmit flows from the town's south wastewater plant to the new wastewater plant that's going to be constructed. Purpose for that is the south plant is bad shape, and this is going to help the environment to transmit flows up to the new plant, which has generally better treatment. So a little bit more about where we are with the project. Joe and Kevin already touched on this, but we're at 90% plans that have been submitted to the town for review, and we are ready this week actually to submit for permitting on the plant. The plant's very important for this project overall because when wastewater gets collected from the septic projects, it's important for the plant to do a good job to have advanced wastewater treatment so that when the wastewater is infiltrated into the ground at the plant, that it's treated to good standards. The overall, the plant, the capacity of the plant, largely because of all of the septic to sewer projects that are going to be connected to it, the capacity is basically going to be increased about 4 times from currently of 250,000 gallons per day to 1 million gallons per day. Overall, the plant is what's considered an advanced wastewater treatment plant. Again, that's important because it's going to provide effluent that does not pollute the groundwater whenever it's infiltrated back into the ground. It has, and the main contaminants is nitrogen and phosphorus that the plant's gonna remove. It has filtration to remove out the larger contaminants that come into the plant. It has tertiary filtration. There's a enhanced sludge dewatering that's going to be included with the plant. And overall, it's going to be designed to fit on the same property as the existing wastewater plant. There's a little bit of the figure there shows that. It's kind of hard to see, but in the box there is the new plant, and overall the other triangle-shaped area is the plant property. I'll go through now a few of the individual component parts of it that I've already kind of mentioned, but the Headworks is the first treatment component where the wastewater comes into the plant, and that removes again the heavier debris that comes into the plant, and there's also a grit removal system to remove the grit. The next part of the plan is the aeration basins. They're called carousel aeration basins, and overall, it's important to know this plant is one that we've designed before in other places. This is a tried and true type of a plant. It's cost effective, and it's not an experiment. This is something that's going to work that that's been done before. The carousel aeration basins, there's 2 redundant carousels that's required because of the advanced wastewater treatment, and also because this town or the plant can produce public access reuse, which it currently does, but this will increase the capacity of, again, up to 1 million gallons per day of the public access reuse water. The plant is going to have, it's going to be a fully automated control system with SCADA. It's very similar to what the town has for one of their water plants. It's going to use a similar type process for SCADA, which is that's the controls integration. Next part of the plan is what's called clarifiers, secondary clarifiers, which are, in simple terms, settling tanks. And there's going to be 2 60-foot diameter clarifiers with a scraper mechanism. Has a chlorination ring to keep the clarifiers from algal buildup within the tanks. Next part of the tank is, or the plant rather, is a tertiary filtration. This is kind of the last filtration process that's required for an advanced wastewater treatment plant. This is kind of it's a package system, aqua disc filters. Again, it's a tried and true system. Sludge dewatering, this was added to the plant by the town staff after we started the project. It's an additional step to reduce costs for the town because it'll dewater the sludge, so the sludge that's being hauled off will be a much lower volume. Cost estimate, hard to see that a little bit. Overall, the cost is roughly $20 million. This is about the same as what we did a preliminary cost estimate at the beginning of the project, and this is about the same as where we were. Some of those cost items have shifted around a little bit. The sludge processing is an additional amount that was again added to the scope, so that's a little bit higher than the original, but that's because there's another scope item added. And that's it, if y'all have any questions.
Okay, next up is going to be Marvin Wolf. He's PE with Poston Engineering. He's also the engineer that's working on the Lake June Point design. Sorry, we'll get really close, and I'll talk a little bit louder. Anyway, Marvin Wolf, PE, Poston Engineering. He's the design engineer for Lake June Point.
Okay, my name's Marvin Wolf. I've been an engineer for 35 years. I've had my license for 31. I've lived in Highlands County all my life, born and raised here. I've seen a lot of development going on throughout the county as far as right on the lakes themselves. We were actually one of the engineers that actually worked on Lake June Point. And so that's what I'm going to be working on as far as discussing this project. First of all, the site is approximately 190 residential lots on Lake June. That's including the 15 or so lots that are on the access road coming into the project. What we are looking at here is the red lines that are shown on here are the approximation of where we would have gravity sewer if we were to go with the gravity sewer. The red dots are the actual lift stations that we would need to potentially have. We have not gone through the full design for this yet, but this was just a quick approximation of how we would lay it out and then start our design process for the project. The green lines are actually force mains that would also be required because we will have gravity sewer from the red lines coming down to the lift stations at the end of the cul-de-sacs. And then we will actually pump that flow back up the hill toward the Catfish Creek intersection. So again, we have one at the south end of the lift station approximation for the cul-de-sac edge because the high points in the project right now are the actual close to the intersection coming into the project. And so that would all flow south. We then have one approximately in the middle of the project toward the north end that actually, it also flows to that low spot where we'll have that lift station. Approximately this area up here, well, you can't really see, well, the break in the red line is the, again, approximate high point where we'll have gravity flow going toward the lake and then toward the cul-de-sac at the north end of the project. What we looked at in this is also how would you construct it now? Currently, we have roads in there, we have telephone, power, cable, water, all within the right-of-way. We looked at the depth that we would have to go in some of these areas. And in constructing the units, we would have to tear up the roads. We would have to essentially dig up the roads completely. We can use what's called trench boxes to help us dig deep down without taking too much of the road and adjacent properties away as we're digging the sewers in. Just a couple of different examples of what's going to be looking like as they're doing the construction during the gravity sewer construction phase. We will have 3 lift stations then in the project itself, and then we will have one out by the main gate. The 3 within the project would look similar to this. This is one that was done recently on the edge of a road within a subdivision. The farthest away from you, the box that's there is the actual lift station in this project. To its left is a metal container up in the air. That's the control panel for the lift station. Closer to you on this middle portion here is what's called a valve box. As it comes out of the lift station, it has a pump, 2 pumps in it. It will have a pipe coming out, and at this point, it actually goes into one pipe. And that's the force main that will take it to where it needs to go. In this project, we'll also need to have a generator set aside right there so that whenever the power does go out, the generator should be able to kick in and keep you in having the sewer available for your project. This particular lift station, control panel, valve box, and generator take up approximately 30 feet. So where these are located, somebody's going to have this in front of their property or on the property line in order to make this thing work. They will be locked generally, but this is what a lift station would look like within the, somewhat look like within your project for Lake June Point. This particular layout is what we would have for a low-pressure type system, which is what we were looking at with the individual septic tanks with grinder systems for each one. We would have a main line that would start at the cul-de-sac at the northeastern corner, wrap around and following the road, it would go all the way down. Again, starting at the south end, it will also come up from there and then come out the main road. Now, the size of this pipe, what we're proposing is two different types of construction. One would be a directional bore. Well, it didn't blow up. What that is you may have seen it with some of the power or gas lines that you've seen being put in along the roadways, DOT right-of-ways. What they have is a machine that they will actually take a drilling rig and drill underground from one point, and they will pull back through the transmission line that they're going to be using for the project we're working on. So they would only be harming, or they would only be affecting small portions of the right-of-way in order to do this. They would be able to go from essentially lot line, maybe 300, 400, 500, 600, even 1,000 feet in some cases, before they would actually have another hole that they would have for either receiving the sewer line or starting the sewer line from. So it would be a lot less intrusion into your properties in order to have a directional bore system used and a low pressure type system used. This particular sketch is what we started out with as far as how to build a low pressure system. Each of these legs that are coming out into the properties are for those people that had shown our surveyors where their septic tanks were. We took that location and we drew essentially a straight line trying to work around any shrubbery, any driveways, anything that you might have decorative in your yard. Again, these can be done two different ways. You can actually trench them in with a trencher, or we can actually do a directional bore with this line also. So again, trying to minimize the amount of the occurrences in your yards. Some of the lots are not developed, and we will go ahead and showing proposed locations for their connection when they do build their houses. We also showed that in this particular project. Now, talking about the directional bore, typically what we would try to do is do a very shallow directional bore, being only 30 to 40 inches deep. That way, when you did connect in your system, or a future person connected in theirs, the line wouldn't be so deep that they couldn't get to it. We wanted to make it a manageable depth. And so again, we're trying to shoot for 30 to 40 inches deep. So for each one of you that already have a home in that area, yes, we will have to dig up in front of your property. They will have a small area that they will have to excavate, and they will attach that line to the main, the force main that we're putting in here. So again, it's a minimal intrusion into your life by having this low pressure type system in.
The difference in gravity connection, what that would look like.
Okay. So this particular slide in the middle here, this is actually showing a water line that we will be doing sewer in this case. It could be between 6 to 12 feet deep. We will then have to dig from that point We will be digging probably a 45-degree angle up out of the deeper portions, and then a flat portion towards your house. That portion will have to be in straight lines, essentially. We can do 45 bends, we can do minor sloping and curvature, but it will have to be from your septic tank all the way out to the right-of-way will be churned up. You might have irrigation out there, you might have cable coming in from the front, your power. That all will be affected by how we have to put in the sewer's gravity system. Yes, that is the gravity connection. So, again, we're trying to prevent intrusion into your yards as much as we can as far as the construction. Pardon?
Let's get on with the presentation.
We've stated over and over again, please save your questions till the end. We're not going to answer questions in the middle of presentations. Thank you. You can choose to listen and follow the presentation, or you can be removed. It's your choice. But you're going to listen to the presentations.
That we are not going to have. If I have to, I will clear this hall and ask one representative from every subdivision to be here. Now, you will act as human beings and answer your questions will be answered at the end. Follow the presentation and then we'll answer your questions. Thank you.
We've also looked at when we're actually doing the gravity system. Again, we're going to be down in some situations approximately 12 feet deep for our gravity sewer collection system. Earlier they talked about having your sewer collection system within the water table. We have made some estimations of the water table in that area because, again, the water fluctuates throughout the year because the elevation of the lake fluctuates throughout the year. The water table on the individual sites varies. It follows somewhat the lay of the land. So if you have an elevation of the lake, I'm going to just throw out some numbers, of 75, the water table, 100 feet, 200 feet, 500 feet is not 75. It will more or less follow the lay of the land, and depending on how good or how bad your permeability, that means your percolation of your soil is, will determine or help to determine what the water table is. Now, Lake June Point, we have a very, very good water table. It's very deep, but it also has a very permeable soil. So what happens is that when we have the septic tanks nearby, it can actually go down quicker and flow laterally quicker than soils that may be along, even over there near Placid Lakes. Placid Lakes has a slightly more permeable, or less permeable soil. It actually can take a little bit longer, but again, it will get there. It's just how long will it take? So what we did in this particular site is we will have to have a minimum of 35 manholes be excavated out. And whenever you excavate down for a manhole, it takes up more room to be able to excavate down and more room to work with to get into it. The gravity line goes from manhole to manhole bottom, essentially. So when I'm talking about the manholes, some of them are 15, 16 feet deep. And with that, you're going to be deep into the water table. So any of your sewer connections that are in that general area will also be in the water table. And again, potentially have possible leakage into the system. So it's not that you're going to be perfect if you go gravity sewer. Now, costs were initially evaluated for the two different types of project, one being the gravity sewer and one being the low pressure type system. The gravity sewer approximate estimate at the beginning of the project was a $5.7 million. The approximate cost for the low-pressure system, again, this was doing the actual main line construction, was only approximately $1.6 million. So about a third of the cost, or a little bit better than the third of the cost. So again, value for buck, it seems like the low-pressure system would be the better method of going with this situation. Thank you.
Okay, just a note, we did not bring the engineer in from Placid Lakes. The issues are the same in Placid Lakes as they are as in Lake June Point. But as a note, Placid Lakes has much higher water table compared to where they are. So typically we're about 3 feet down in Placid Lakes. Lake June Point has a much deeper, because they're a higher elevation on the road than we are in Placid Lakes. So. Next presentation is by Randy Bell on the E1. This is the pump, the grinder pump that we are proposing to use.
How you doing? My name is Randy Bell. I'm with F.J. Nugent Associates. We're the E1 pressure sewer distributor for Central and South Florida. I myself have been doing pressure sewers for 34 years now. I have worked literally around the world. I've done projects in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, all over the United States. I've been in every state, Mexico, Canada, Sweden, and in Europe. For the last 16 years, I've been here in Florida. And my last large project was Florida Keys. We provided about 5,000 pumps from Key Largo all the way down to Key West. What I'd like to do today is really give you a brief history of pressure sewers, answer your questions at the end, and we'll just go from there. I did not do a PowerPoint presentation because I find it's easier just to talk sometimes. E1 is the leader in this industry. This is all they do. They started, Environment One started in upstate New York over 50 years ago. The original pump was designed by a group of engineers from General Electric. This is designed as an appliance. It's designed to be repaired and put back into service. There's no preventative maintenance done on this equipment. I know that people have heard a lot of stories about how they don't work and how they're costly to maintain. There's a lot of manufacturers in our industry. There's only one that does this. We're a low-pressure sewer business. The pumps that they build today will actually retrofit into the basins they put in the ground 50 years ago. The average mean time between service calls on our equipment is about 8 to 10 years. The average mean time between overhauls is about 15 to 20. Again, they're designed to repair and put back in. When I talk about GE, I knew the 6 engineers because I've been around for a long time. They came from the small appliance division. They developed dishwashers and washing machines and refrigerators, items that you don't typically have maintenance done on an annual basis. The good news is that they didn't know enough about pumps and sewers to make mistakes, so they started with a clean piece of paper. They went out and they found out what the average flows were from single-family residences, and then they developed the pump that met that demand. When Marvin was talking about where the stations go, how this works, low-pressure sewer systems are typically, the mains, the collection system, are typically 2-inch to 4-inch in diameter. Now, we recommend the use of high-density polyethylene pipe because, A, it comes in big rolls. You can put a lot of it in the ground very quickly. And it's buried about 30 to 40 inches deep. On the private property, on the lots, we typically recommend that the grinder pump station goes next to the house, between the house and the existing septic tank. We want the pump to do all the work. From the station out to the street is 1.25 inch polyethylene line. It's buried about 24 inches deep. This station, this pump is designed to do one thing. It's designed to take the sewage from your house, grind it up, and send it away. And that's exactly what it does. The grinder assembly on this pump is 5.5 inches in diameter. If you've ever looked at a GE InSinkErator garbage disposal, you're going to see a very similar design. Now, we use a little harder material, and it's upside down, it's inverted, but these pumps can pump up to 4 miles to 1.25 inch line. That's why we don't show any lift stations here, because these will do it all. Starting at the ends of these lines, they're gonna go from 2 inch to 3 inch to 4 inch. That's it. Because we use polyethylene, there's no I&I, which is groundwater inflow and infiltration. That's one piece of pipe because it's all thermally welded. Now, I know that everybody wants to know what we do, what happens when there's a power outage. Well, I was in the Keys for Irma. It was a lot of fun that day. I was down there for several weeks. Your biggest sources of flow don't work either. You're not going to do laundry. You're not going to run your dishwasher because you don't have any power. These basins are designed to give you a modicum of storage capacity. We provide a generator receptacle on the alarm panel, and all you have to do is plug in a generator. You don't have to keep it in. You don't have to run it all the time. The longer duration power outage, the less and less the flow, because you don't take cold showers in the dark. You can only flush the toilet so many times, unless there's a health issue. I think Joe said, don't put kitty litter, things like that. Well, these are designed to take sanitary sewage. The typical things that if it passes through your lips, it'll grind it. If you have a cat, you can put some little kitty litter down. You just can't put a lot. If you know, don't pour gasoline down your drain. That's a pretty good idea for anything. Again, it's all it does. It takes it and runs away. You get to have a choice of where this thing goes. If you have landscaping, if you have paver driveways, things like that, we can go around that with the poly pipe because it's a roll. It's not going to destroy your property. Right now, we're working with Martin County Utilities over near Stewart. They have right at 800 pumps in the ground right now. When we're done there, they're going to have close to 10,000. We've been working with them for about 5 years. They have yet to add a single person to their operation and maintenance staff. They have 230 lift stations that they spend more time working and maintaining the lift stations than they do the 800 grinder pumps. First of all, your first 5 years, they're under warranty. Anything goes wrong, you call me, we come and fix it. After that, the biggest wear item on this piece of equipment is about a $90 part, which can be replaced in the field, by the way. Because we have the interchangeability, what we normally do is we will show up, pull your pump, drop a spare in, it's called a push-and-pull. It's a plug and play. We unplug it, lift it out, drop another one in. We take that pump and repair it. The average overhaul on these is about $1,700 to $1,800. The electrical usage, because I know that question will be coming, is less than a 40-watt light bulb. They use about 85 cents to $1 of electricity a month because they don't run a lot. The average flow from a single-family home, regardless of what the DEP says, is between about 145 and 155 gallons of wastewater a day. Now, our operation level is very shallow. We want the pumps to turn on a lot. We want them to run 15 to 20 times a day because we want all the biosolids and the biomass removed from the bottom of the basin. We want to keep, and I always love this term, we want to keep the sewage fresh. So your on-off levels are very shallow. So if there is an issue, if there's an alarm, if there's a power outage, you have a lot of storage capacity. But once again, remember, your big sources of flow aren't going to work. You know, I lived in Kansas City for 30 years. We had a project on the Kansas side, Toto and Scarecrow and all those. There was a late spring ice storm. All the trees had already started budding out. 300 homes were without power for 3 weeks. We didn't have a single backup because we went out the first day, pumped everyone, just went right down the street, pumped them all down. And then we sent guys out the second day to check the basins. There's nothing in them. We sent them out the third day. There was nothing in them. We didn't have to start pumping them down again until after the fourth day. So these are great concerns to have, but in reality, you have to use a little common sense. In reality, we know the storms are coming. I grew up in Tornado Alley. We didn't name our storms. They just showed up uninvited. But we know these are coming, and we can prepare for them. In the Keys, they didn't have any backups because the Aqueduct Authority, who owns the most of them, they had people ready to go. I was in Marathon, and we were there we had a couple of hundred pumps there. We were there to maintain them and take care of them. We will be there to support you. Don't be afraid of this. This technology has been around for a long, long time. We serve millions of people every single day, all around the world. So don't believe everything you read on the internet. I grew up believing that the Social Security lockbox was going to be good. Well, we know better than that now. So this is, again, designed for a very specific application. It does one thing, and it does one thing very well. Now, we've got some information that we're going to hand out. I'll be here afterwards. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. I just really wanted to talk to you about what this is, the differences between pressure sewers and gravity sewers. If you could do gravity cheaper and more reliably, I have always said for 34 years, do that. But that's not always the case. Thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to answer some of the questions, people ask questions, and it ties into a lot of what was said in the petition, so I hope I'll cover a lot of that. So some of this you've already heard. Town Council applied for a $40 million grant, centralized pressure, low pressure system versus a traditional gravity. That's not what the grant was applied for. It was applied for a new plant and to extend water sewer lines. You've already seen the Town Council meetings, newspaper articles, and all the costs to date are based on engineers' estimates, not actual. So costs are still largely unknown until the first quarter of 2024, when the bids will be coming in. And we are continuing to apply for grants to cover connection costs and other costs associated with the project. So, matter of fact, there's one due in 10 days. The current grant does not provide enough funding for preferred conventional gravity system. Gravity is preferred in new construction, but is not an option for most lake homes built below the road. So the council has already reduced projects and can make further reductions as needed. So cost answers are not here yet. We're using low pressure because it's less costly for the town, and we're just shifting costs to the property owner. So the low pressure system was chosen due to construction restraints. We've already heard a lot of that from Marvin Wolf. High water tables, low density houses below the road level, one-way roads. It is less costly to install, and we continue to apply for grants to cover the costs. During a power outage, the pump won't work. That's absolutely true. Long-term power outages are not normal or frequent. So we need to briefly modify our use. Let me get caught up here. So when the power goes out, your tank still has a minimum capacity of 48 gallons. That's about 30 flushes of your toilet. So don't take a shower. When your tank is full, your next flush, if it was completely full, you don't have a massive overflow. If you flush your toilet again, you're going to have 1.6 gallons of water flow out the screen. So if we have a hurricane or a long-term power outage, do you have normal operations? Absolutely not. Does your refrigerator work? No. Your air conditioner? No. Your washer, your dryer? No. Your water heater? No. And your grinder pump? No. Is it inconvenient? Absolutely. You've lived through it if you've been in Florida any length of time. I was utility directors at Clewiston during Francis, Jean, and Wilma. happened to be at the school board during Irma, and I was lucky enough to be here for Ian. So you don't use large amounts of water, no long showers. You got 60 flushes once you pump your tank out, so you got a while. If you use a generator, if you have one available to it, plug it in, 10 minutes, the tank's gonna pump out, you're good to go for a while. If you don't have a generator, call us. We're here to help. It's not even, it doesn't matter who owns the system. In my mind, that decision hadn't been made, but we try and keep everybody in power as we have. We pumped all the water, all the sewer plants, all the wastewater plants, kept them running. So if you have a whole house generator, it operates as normal. It does require energy to move, less than $2 per month. And who owns it? That final decision will be made by the council. It has not been made yet. This question about permanent residents, hold on. Permanent residents, and if not here, then if you have sewage sitting in the grinder pump, turn your washing machine on, run some water, it's going to pump it out, and then all you'll have is clean water sitting in your grinder pump. So if you're a seasonal resident, it's not a hard solution. Cost of residence have not been determined yet, if any. What? I said, if you're a resident that's not here today, if you're only a part-time resident, you leave so that you don't have sewer sitting in your tank. Unlike your septic tank, you can run a washing machine. This will fill up. It'll automatically empty, and you have nothing but clean water sitting in the grinder station. So there's a question about new septic systems versus old septic systems. Neither one do anything for very little for nutrient removal. You already heard that. The study's been done in tens of thousands of locations. Septic tanks all operate the same. Now, the new law is if you're putting in a new septic tank, new construction, you will have a nutrient removal septic tank system. It's completely different. You're going to have most likely a blower that you're going to handle at your house, and you're going to have some maintenance requirements on that. It's a different type of system. The town has not proven which areas are contaminating the waterways with our sewer system, with our septic systems. Studies on our website, you can pull it up. Joe referenced the HDR study, that's it. It's listed as the Lake June and Winter watershed study. So it's on the website, you can access it, you can read the 300 plus pages. It's there to look at. It's already been talked about a little bit, but the median concentration in a septic tank is 10 milligrams per liter. That's the effluent, what's coming out. The highest level of phosphorus that we've discharged in our current plant is 2.4. And we're gonna probably cut that in less than half because we're building an advanced wastewater plant to remove the additional. Our average level of nitrogen, again, average 60 milligrams in a septic tank effluent. That's what's flowing into the ground, into the lakes. It's not getting absorbed by the sand. So the highest level of nitrogen coming out of our plant is 5.9. People talk about the Hillsborough County Low Pressure Conversion Project. They are doing that. It's been installed for about 40 years, and they're doing a conversion project. Completely different design consideration than ours, particularly elevation, age, and density of their system. They're not installing a gravity system. They're installing a low-pressure vacuum system. Ruskin, the town of Ruskin, which is one of the areas they're doing, is 3 foot above sea level. 66% of the properties are in a flood zone. Gibsonton is 7 foot above sea level, and 73% of their properties in a flood zone. Both of those are going to a vacuum system. We don't have the densities that warrant a vacuum system. So design considerations have led many utilities to install low-pressure systems where they recommend it. Martin County will have 10,000 when their project is complete. One of the questions was, where's the location of treatment plants and all lift stations? How much land was needed to be acquired, and who made these decisions? The treatment plant expansion you've already seen will take place on the current location. No land has been acquired for the plant or lift stations. Design's not complete, so we don't know if we don't have the proposed locations. You saw some from Marvin and for Lake June Point. If you're in Placid Lakes, you can basically count on one being at the end of every road. So the land falls from Placid Lakes Drive down to the end towards Catfish Creek. So there'd be at the end of the cul-de-sac and every one of those roads, and every one of those canal roads, Lime Road, Lemon, Kumquat, as you go down the line, there's gonna be a lift station at the end of every road. It'll flow that direction. We got a second line pump it back up to the north, to the west. We have a force main, kind of you install 2 pipes instead of 1. How many grinder pumps are estimated to be purchased in total? What is the brand and model? What company you're planning to buy all the pumps from? You've heard from E1. So we don't have any decisions at this point about purchasing any grinder pumps. Until bids come in for the infrastructure, we can't make a decision about any of it unless we get another grant. Basis of design, E1 system, 100-gallon single pump, and you've heard from Randy. We're told it's mandatory to hook up with 1 year after sewer completion. We'll restore our current septic field regardless of age. Anyway, why would you destroy a fully functioning septic field on private property? Chapter 381-00655 addresses part of the issue. However, enforcement of the statute relies on the local authority. So town council or county commission would actually determine whether you had to connect or not. Right now, there's been no real talk of forcing you to connect. There is a law that says when it's available, you will connect within a year, but again, enforcement lies on the local authority. Again, as the fully functioning septic field currently solid, septic tanks have been proven over and over again that they're the problem with our lakes and water bodies. They're not designed for nutrient reduction. So, still options for the council to consider. This addresses some of the cost questions that you're asking about. What areas of the project will be built? We don't know yet. We don't know how much it's going to cost compared to how much money we have. So those decisions, they've already eliminated Sun and Lakes, they already manage Highway Park based on engineers' estimates. So we don't know. They have the option of reducing those areas to only build certain ones that they have funding for. Now, the priorities of design. We know that we're building a wastewater treatment plant because we can't connect anything if we don't connect the wastewater treatment plant. We're going to close the south wastewater treatment plant. It's an old system. It's not the new. It's not up to the new standards, and we plan on closing the Tomoka line plant and bringing that whole section of homes up into the new plant. So those are priority areas. We know that we're going to work on those. Those are first in line. And once those costs comes in, then we'll look at the rest of the design areas to see what we can afford to fund. Starting at, you wonder why Placid Lakes is in there. The water flows from south to north. So if you're going to pick an area and you're going to try and solve the problem, you don't want to start in the middle. So you want to start at the top of the system, which is in this case at Lake Placid. You move into Placid Lakes. Ideally, then you move into Lake June Point. You move around Lake June Road and follow the flow of water. So that's the priorities for the areas. Again, until they have costs, bid costs, they won't be able to make any of those decisions, probably first quarter 2024. We're applying for grants. We have one going in. We had one last year. We didn't get it. We're applying again this year. We have to know whether we'll see that before they make a bid. So we'll know if we have money or incentives for you to connect. And that's why I say incentives. We won't know that. And we have 2024 of August, 2025, 2026. Moving forward, we have time to apply for more grants, try and get that funding and reduce the cost. So town's contribution to connecting costs and septic tank destruction. This depends on bids and grant. Current design, whether it be gravity or low pressure, doesn't anticipate the costs for destroying your septic tank and connecting to the system. That is to put in the backbone of the system. If they eliminate if they eliminate one of the areas or one of the projects, then they can take that money and put into connection costs. If we get another grant, that money can go into connection costs. We don't have those answers yet. The council can consider stopping the current low-pressure design and shift to a combination gravity low pressure, and I say combination. If your house is below the road level, you're gonna end up with a grinder pump. Gravity doesn't flow uphill. So my house in Lake June Point, if we're on a low pressure, I'm not below the road level, but I'll end up with a grinder pump. My brother who's on Lake June Road, he's below the road level. He'll end up with a grinder pump. He already has a raised septic tank, so he's familiar with a effluent pump, kind of a step system. I think he's had it since 85? 1985, he's put one pump in it. So since 1985. So, who owns and maintains the grinder pumps? Hasn't been decided, don't know. That's a discussion that this council will still have to consider. Determine funding for a blended gravity low pressure system. So you're gonna hear if everybody here wants a gravity system, or is the sound gonna keep waiting until they have enough grant money to fund every bit of it? Or what I'm familiar with in Clewiston, when we did our system, it was a 70-30 grant. So the grant had 70%, the town absorbed some of it in our rates and our gas tax money, because you're rebuilding the roads. The town doesn't get much of that, but anyway, or you participate through an assessment. My mother was working on a 20-year assessment. It rolled to my son. She's living in the house, and he's living in the house, so he still has another 8 years to pay on the assessment. It goes on the tax roll. Again, not telling you you're gonna have an assessment, still trying to get the grant money to pay for it so you don't have an assessment. I'm just telling you the options for council consideration. If the council would decide to change the design for Lake June Point or Placid Lakes, those are the two areas that you could possibly put a gravity system in. Any house that is below street level still needs grinder pump. 3 to 4 lift stations along Sunset Point. You saw the pictures from Marvin. If we don't have enough easement, if it takes 30 foot and we've got 20-foot easement, which includes your power lines and your communication lines, then we may have to have an easement from a property owner, or we'll have to do that through eminent domain. It's an ugly word, but if you want a gravity system, then we've got to figure out where to put the lift stations. Same issue at Placid Lakes, the end of the cul-de-sac. Those properties owners at the end of this cul-de-sac going to have to give us additional easement right away, or we're going to have to figure out how to put the lift station in. So it's not all rosies on either side. And with that, we're going to go to public comment. We're going to be writing down your answers, because a lot of your answers we won't have tonight. But I hope from the cost consideration, you saw some of those answers. We're not going to have those answers until February, first quarter of 2024, probably February. So, and now, either you have, or Mr. Mayor, I guess we'll turn it back over to you for the public comment list.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
I've got a pretty good stack of papers here of people that want to talk. If your questions have been answered, just stand up and say, my question's been answered. I don't want to be repetitive. That it's just going to take too long to have everybody come up and keep asking the same questions. The first one we have is Whittingham Gordon. State your name and where you live for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Whittingham Gordon. I live at 541 Sunset Point Drive. And first, I want to congratulate Mr. McCarty and his appointment as a new town manager. I think you guys made an excellent choice, and I want to congratulate you, sir. I also want to commend this commission going out there to seek a $40 million grant to help save our lakes. But and also having this meeting tonight, which I think should have been happening probably about a year ago. we should have this meeting, you wouldn't have all this much residents with unanswered questions. So I think moving forward, I think you need to have more community outreach to your communities and informing what's going on, step by steps, and how we move this process. I'm not here against the sewer project. I'm all for a centralized sewer system. I've been in this business myself. I spent over 30 years working in local municipal, converting septic tank. I've probably done over 2,000 or so in a more dense community, and didn't have to go with low pressure system, but with gravity. And so folks understand, they will be paying, in the community, putting the gravity system. There's no doubt about that. You will have very inconvenient issues, but I guarantee you, at the end of the day, with a gravity system, you will have generation and generation of usage without any maintenance to worry about. I heard all the speakers, and I'm not here to debate anyone. Everyone here is reputable folks, tell exactly what they're doing. But I have to respectfully disagree with staff regarding the water table and installing the sewer system, because it can be done. It's done all over the country. You can go ahead and put pipes in the water. It's not a problem doing it. I've done it for many, many years, and sewer system is still working too well today. So, again, I just want to tell you, there needs to be more outreach to the community. And also, before I forget, and I want to lose my train of thought here, but a $40 million project is not a project that happened overnight. This takes careful planning, okay? Meaning you need to communicate to the residents, which is what I just mentioned earlier, and transparency as much as possible to the residents. Give it back to folks so they could digest these things and understand what we're doing, what you're doing for the community. But I just want to let you know that I am not here to support a low pressure system. A gravity system in a planned is made best for a planned community like Lake June Point or Placid Lake. These are planned community. Low pressure system, much better fitted for more rural communities where you have your neighbors half a mile away. Those are more for low pressure system. And again, I will go back and emphasize that if you do a gravity system, yes, there will be inconvenience to the community, but in the long run, you got a much better system. So again, I commend you for what you're doing, and I appreciate all that, having this meeting tonight, and I say no to low flow. Thank you.
Next is Jack Conley.
Good evening. My name is Jack Conley. I live at 607 Sunset Point Drive. Some of my questions have been answered. Some have been answered by saying they don't have the answer. They don't have the answer now. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing the taxpayers and voters to express some of their concerns about the proposed low-pressure sewer system. I'm going to talk a little bit about the possible cost to the homeowners. Right? The median household income in Lake Placid as of 2021 was about $43,000. That is less than 46% of the state median income. The estimated cost I have seen for the complete sewage granular pump system installation is about $13,000 plus or minus. And that's to be paid by, so far we've been told that's to be paid by the homeowner at the time of the pump installation. $13,000 would be about 30% of their gross yearly income before taxes. Do you really think the average taxpayer in Lake Placid area can afford an upfront cost of anywhere near that amount for a sewage grinder pump system? I realize you're talking about applying for grants to possibly pay for some of that, but there's no guarantee of that. The next thing I want to talk about is that the U.S. Department of Environmental Protection Agency states in the wastewater fact sheet that it is in the best interest of the city and homeowners to have the municipality or sewer utility be responsible for maintaining all system components. In addition, the state of Florida DEP goes even further and states that pressure sewer systems shall be administered in the same manner as gravity sewer and treatment plants. A central authority shall maintain ownership and responsibility for all components of the pressure system. Note that it says maintain ownership. It doesn't say take over ownership. Just one more thing here. As an example, the city in Florida, as of October 2022, charges their residents who want to have a low-pressure source system installed in place of a septic tank at their house, around $6,000 for the low-pressure system, and they take over all responsibility for the system. I hope in the future you will be more respectful to the town residents and get input from them in the very early planning stages of major projects. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Okay, Joy Eberhardt.
For the record, Joy Eberhardt, 716 Sunset Point Drive. Can you hear me? Is it okay? Okay. I'm going to summarize a little bit from what happened at last week's regular town council meeting, for those of you that weren't here. Obviously, I'm on the Utility Advisory Commission, and we were all pleased when we got the original grant for the $40 million, and we saw the construction estimates were done for both gravity and low pressure. And, but then around November, December of last year, everything somehow switched to low pressure was the way it is going to be. That's the way it's going to be. I don't know how gravity got dropped. Now, bear in mind that the commission, it's the town council and the mayor that makes the decisions. We're only an advisory commission. So anyway, somehow things got geared toward low pressure only. So I started asking questions, and I had concerns about the low pressure system, how it operated and its flaws. And I didn't get answers that satisfied me. So I made a statement for the record that I was opposed to low pressure. And then at the August 1 Utilities Commission meeting, I made the motion for a special town council meeting for the sole purpose of discussing this septic to sewer project, to answer questions and hear the opinions of those affected by the proposed plan. Coincidentally, at the same time, another concerned citizen made the same request to the mayor. And so here we are. And finally, it should have been done a long time ago, but we're here and it's good. Last week, I suggested to the council, to town council, to dig into a little more about the low pressure, the concerns, and that they read the voluminous comments of opposition on the Nextdoor app and on the Facebook page that's called Lake Placid Life. I asked them to go to the petition and also read the comments, especially the vehement comments from people who have had these systems and don't want it. By the way, last week, Monday, there were 371 votes on the petition. This afternoon, there's 632 in opposition. Now, you did answer a lot of the questions, Kevin, with your PowerPoint. That was good. Again, this should have been done a long time ago. And in fact, I believe that you probably all have talked to your constituents and, done these things because of the fact of how well the presentation was put together tonight and answered a lot of questions that are out there. So, and I'm also very happy to see that now at the conclusion of Kevin's thing, there were the bullet points of things that the council could consider: the combined gravity, low pressure, all those, 10, 12 things that you're asking the council to consider. So that was very good. So I guess going forward, in conclusion, is we need to have more of these meetings, these public meetings for the sole discussion of the system, which way you're going. And I expect that when the bids come in, and before you make any decisions, that you have another town meeting like this. So I think So I thank you for allowing me this time, and also I want to thank all the people out there who have invested hours and hours of time to inform their neighbors and give your neighbors the voice you have tonight. Thank you.
Colleen Charles.
Hi, I'm Colleen Charles, and I reside also in Lake June Point at 522 Sunset Point Drive. I'm also on the board of directors of the Lake June Point subdivision. First off, I'd like to say that I, nor the majority of the people in this room, ever dreamed to attend a town council meeting to oppose a decision on a critical and expensive infrastructure project. But being on the board of directors for Lake June Point Homeowners Association, in hearing the feedback from our homeowners during and after our homeowners meeting, our annual meeting we had this February where Joe Barber came and presented the same presentation he did today on the septic to sewer, and further receiving feedback from other professionals, including engineers, project managers, and others who have a lot of experience with sewer systems, and then hearing all the issues that low-pressure grinder pump option has, we felt we needed to directly communicate this feedback to the town council, which will allow you to make the best decision on the level of service and the long-term benefits for all the impacted areas when you decide on a critical project, such that it will provide the best quality of life for the residents and the environment and last many decades into the future. Lake Placid and our surrounding areas have grown over the last 10+ years and made up a very diverse people that should be used to our advantage. Many people have worked in federal, state, county, and city governments. Many have worked in engineering firms, some who have done projects like this. Many have experience in facilities, utilities, and operations. Many overseeing consulting teams, auditors, and so on. Many have come from areas who have experience with the low-pressure grinder pump option that was approved. We've been told it's been approved and proceeding forward. Many are on fixed incomes, many part-timers, weekenders, and snowbirds. So environment and cost are concerns. We should respect all their experiences and seriously welcome their feedback. Why not listen to concerns of those whose budget, environment, quality of life, and property values are impacted versus consulting firms' recommendations on what they or who they perceive would want? We will be the result of and live with that decision for years to come versus consultants and others who move on to their next project. In other words, no real skin in the game. Holding public meetings to seek our feedback on this type of critical project will contribute to its overall success in both the short and the long term. Hillsborough County, we've heard about that, is replacing a grinder pump system with gravity due to the same issues that people have pointed out. While elevation may require a higher cost option for gravity, a substandard option for less cost in the short term should not be the overall deciding factor. My comments to you are regarding the Lake Placid to Sewer $40 million grant that the details have not been public communicated, nor asked for public comments, and further, in many opinions, the right type of sewer option for all various stakeholders involved. A notice on the town's website that cannot be accessed due to security certificate renewal issues, and a notice on the bulletin board inside the town hall is not proper public notification for a $40 million project. A meeting like this is way overdue. In May 2021, over 2 years ago, which was not on your chart, Kevin, there was a special town council meeting, and the minutes discussed upcoming COVID funds available to the Florida DEP, which Lake Placid meets the criteria for wastewater facilities and removal of septic tanks under those COVID funds. January 2022, there was a press release on the town website that the $40 million grant was awarded from Florida DEP. It seems like everyone just understood that to be a traditional gravity system. April 2022, there was a special town council meeting, had the presentation of low pressure and gravity sewer options, and costs were presented to council. October 24th, and I did receive the letter, was mailed to my house that a grant has been received and survey crews would be on our property. No mention of low flow grinder pump options was included in the letter, even though it appears a decision on the type of sewer option was already made. Thus again, we thought it was the traditional gravity flow type system. February 18th, as was mentioned of this year, Joe Barber came to our annual HOA meeting and he presented the presentation that town council had already approved. Overall, there was no support for this type of option for the same concerns that are now voiced in the petition and Facebook and Nextdoor feedback versus gravity flow, and asked that he take all of our concerns back to town council. March 13th of 2023, two Lake June Point residents addressed town council meeting with comments, questions, and opposition to the grinder pump sewer option. Their 3-minute time was upheld, and they left behind the remaining questions that they had in comments, and 2 months later, after much follow-up, they got the responses to their questions. So I hear that there was issues with what was put in the petition, and I'm here to say everything in that petition was given to us either in those questions or answers or at our homeowners meeting. August 1st, as Joy mentioned, there was the regional advisory meeting where people were impacted, and the outcome of that was today's meeting. And we really, really, really appreciate you taking your time to address our questions and hopefully seriously consider the feedback of those that must live with a completed sewer option. As you're aware, a public purpose petition was started 2 weeks ago based on the information that we received from the answers to our questions and at our homeowners meeting. As Joy mentioned, as of now, 632 people have signed the online petition and 200 people have signed a paper copy. I think it's important, Mr. Mayor and Town Council, to review the written comments that the people wrote on the online petition site, Facebook, Lake Placid Life, and Nextdoor. These are the people that will have to live with the final decision that you are entrusted with. The various themes from the courageous comments published on this comment are no transparency or communication. Present the facts between what is the real impact the septic tank has on the lakes. Horrible idea. Stop the project and give back the money. Should be no cost to homeowners. No mandatory hookup. Many septic systems are brand new or recently built. Hillsborough County, Port St. Lucie, the Keys, and other areas with this type of system. Don't do it. And these are people that lived in or currently live in those areas. Sounds like a solution to a problem that isn't there. How can town council force this on county residents or outside town limits? We should be voting on substantial expenses. Could cause political consequences. As your constituents, we are trusting you always make the decisions that what's best for the residents and the town. Do not take this role lightly. And please do not let us down on deciding the right approach to this $40 million grant with much more dollars needed to complete the overall septic to sewer. It seems it should be a multi-phase over multi-years project and not rushed into in order to get volume of conversions for the grant with low-cost option. The long-term plan of septic to sewer should be accommodated through future grants, same with any required cost for homeowners. Now my question is to the mayor and to town council. Mr. Mayor, thank you. If based on all our public feedback, will you redirect the septic to sewer project managers to support a pause on the current connections of the design plan for low pressure grinder pumps? And one, ask for a redesign for gravity by area, meet with each of the impacted areas on the revised plan for feedback, prioritize the areas on sewer replacement need based on the current grant money available. We recognize that each of these has different elevation and challenges, but the impacted homeowners should be allowed to give feedback for their area, and then have a properly noticed special meeting on the final design and recommendation for public comment prior to final council approval. Thank you for your time and your commitment to the town of Lake Placid.
Greg Dunlop, please.
John, I'm not gonna be able to follow that, I agree with everything she says.
You need to come to the podium. What did he say?
He said he agreed.
Oh. Okay. Fred Hartzell.
Yes, my name is Fred Hartzell. Lived here in, I live on 250 Lake Pearl Drive. Been here in Lake Placid for, 67 years. In regards to the force main sewer systems, my question is, the existing force main system that we have, I'm associated with a business on Interlake Boulevard, Hartzell's Market. Some of y'all might know of it. We were literally forced to connect to that system in the time of its coming to existence. The health department came to us and said, we will lock your doors if you do not connect to our system. So in the teens of thousands of dollars later, of course, we connected. We've had to replace the grinder pump 3 times, twice at our expense, once, thank you to Joey for assistance there. My question is, the gentleman that was up talking about the different grinders pumps, the gentleman that was here talking about grinder pumps and that there are 3-year warranties and that they never blow up and seldom they have issues with them. Well, are you the same manufacturer of these pumps that we now have? No. Okay. Can we get his pumps? Are they going to be at our expense in the future? Just some questions I think ought to be answered, that's all. Thank you.
Don Enright? Question mark.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what I was gonna hear. My name's Don Enright, and I reside at 378 Catfish Creek Road. My first question would be to you, Mr. Mayor, was this a forced issue? Is this something that the government said you will do the sewer system?
The laws from DEP are such that,
Did somebody
listen, I understand that. Eventually, everyone's going to have to get off the septic.
That's not now.
Well,
We're talking about now.
Well, in a way it is now. They have allocated the money to have these projects done to save our lakes.
So,
Now, let me ask you a question. What happens if our lakes die?
well,
I heard a lady talk.
you haven't proved
I heard a lady talk about
You
property
have not
value.
proved beyond the shadow of doubt that our lakes are dying. They're contaminated.
I'm sorry, they are.
Our lakes have been contaminated for years and years and years. Ever since the first house went up on that lake, it was being contaminated. So don't trying to push that off on me, because
I'm not
that's
trying
not
to
going
push
to
it
work.
off.
Yes,
Listen,
you are.
it's all of us. We're all in this together.
You guys made the decision for everybody with not, there was no, and everybody has said that, there has been no transparency between you and us until now. This project is over a year into going, and this is the first I knew about it. October 20, whatever, is when I got the letter that said we're gonna be surveying and stuff. Now, I'm not opposed to sewers, I'm really not.
Yeah.
I'm opposed to the grinder pumps because, number one, this gentleman here did not tell the whole truth. He was kind of catfishing a little bit because he was talking about tearing up the yard and stuff for putting the main trunk in. Your yard's gonna be tore up anyway because you gotta dig up the old septic system and bury that, plus you have to bury a line out to the sewer. So what big deal is it to have another little hole out here when you got half your yard tore up anyway? That's what I don't understand. Okay? And I'm really upset because of a lack of transparency from you guys. You guys are here to serve us, and you're not doing that. You're not doing that at all. Now, I have no doubt that there was no malice intended or anything, that all your intentions were good, but you should have come to the people. We should have been involved with this right from the get-go. When you knew you had this money, you should have had a special meeting. There should have been notices mailed out, not on a computer. Not everybody gets on a computer. There should have been special notices mailed out that said, we have this money, we're contemplating a sewer system, we're gonna have a town meeting on it. And then I would like to see you adopt it every 3 months, we have an update on the sewer system. And have that either mailed out to us or put on the agenda so we know that it's every 3 months. On this date, we're gonna have a meeting on the sewer system.
Okay,
Okay?
yeah. Kevin, we can do that.
Okay. Well, there was a couple other things I had, but my wife's over there saying, shut up, shut up, shut up. So by now I forgot them, but that was the main thing that I wanted to get to. And again, I appreciate your time and thanks for listening.
Okay. Is it Mark Flum? Flum, okay. Sorry about that.
Could you not get higher microphones?
Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Flum, and I live at 108 Orange Road, Northeast, which is the first canal in Placid Lakes.
I didn't know I was coming to this meeting for sure until about 2 hours before. And then as I sat over there, I had no intention of saying anything until after I started hearing the speeches. I am an MBA and, more generally speaking, a numbers guy. So all of the budget stuff caught my ear. And while I realize it's not set in stone by any stretch yet, I've done enough budgets, both in construction and other businesses, that I know if you're talking about 40 million today, by the time we get to doing it, it's going to be 45, maybe as high as 50 million. So if you're talking about 10 to 15,000 per household, that's probably based on the 40, not on 45 or 50. So is the rest of it going to be doled out to the individuals? The other thing I want to comment on is my wife and I bought our house in Placid Lakes in 2005. For about the first 10 years, we were back and forth between Florida and Indianapolis, where we were born, about once a month. And our business is still in Indianapolis, so I go back and forth a lot, but about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 7, we became full-time residents, and I don't go back as much as I used to. And we sold our house in Indy last August. The year before that, Marion County, which is the base of Indianapolis, went through this exact process. In fact, the grinder that we ended up with in our front yard looked exactly like the dome cap that was up here. I didn't like having to pay for it, but they charged us $3,500, which in retrospect is a very reasonable number, and that included filling up our old septic tank. We didn't have to do a damn thing to it. It was included. $3,500. 10 to 15,000 is absolutely absurd. Now, I don't know. I don't know any of you folks personally, and I have faith that you will conduct yourselves as Florida neighbors, not the elitists that we find in so many other political entities. You can't just automatically assume that 10 to 15,000 or more, which I think it will be, is going to be a reasonable number to throw at all these people. Can't do it. So that was my main point. Now I got a couple other questions. Has the sewer system been implemented anywhere north of Lake Placid?
Yes, in Sebring it has been.
It has been in Sebring? Okay.
And in Avon Park.
And if you have a grinder problem, I guess this goes to one of these gentlemen over here. If you have a grinder problem, how long would it take to get somebody to come and repair it? What? So you guys are going to be based in Lake Placid?
No talking between it. Please come up and answer his question, or answer his question.
That really is all I wanted to say. While you guys were talking, my head was just spinning with things to say, but I just hope you will remember you are our neighbors.
Jim Crookham?
Good evening. I can't believe this turnout. This is wonderful. This is really good. I'm a longtime Lake Placid resident. Only 11 years, past 11 years in Lake June Point. And we love Lake Placid. We love Lake June Point. We love our neighbors. It's just, you couldn't find a better place. And I mean, I hear it all the time, all of our new neighbors that come down are generally from the north, and there's got to be a reason. I mean, you know, let's face it, this word gets out. Anyhow, most of my questions, I had a full page, most of my questions have been answered. I do have a couple of things I'd like to run by. One of the things, Joe had mentioned the situation with the content of the Lake June, especially where we're most concerned. Sorry about that. Joe Barber had mentioned you shouldn't swim, you shouldn't drink, you shouldn't do anything in Lake June because it's contaminated, pretty much. We have a local health department, I believe, so we've got we call Mexican Beach right down from us. We're on the far end. It's over by the ballpark. Every night, most nights, the kids and the families are in the water. They're playing, and I'm thinking, damn, if that lake is that contaminated, they got to do something about it. So anyhow, has nothing to do with. We've got one comment was the actual sewage plant. The sewage plant was going to be $20 million. Is that only one plant? All we need is one plant? Is that from the engineers? We need one plant for the whole sewage project develop. Okay, that's good to know. I didn't know. Let's see. I want to keep it short. I would like to propose, I don't know if it's feasible, but maybe allowing each individual development decide which type system that they're going to buy. And that's basically what you're going to do. You're going to be buying it. Thank you very much. Certainly appreciate you guys letting me come up here.
Carolyn Morrison.
John, she left.
Oh, she left? Okay. Yeah, she wanted to know that why would my property need to hook up to this system when I don't live on the lake and the areas in Placid Lakes who don't live on the lake aren't required to hook up? Well, she kind of answered her own question. But anyway, I wish she would have stayed to elaborate on what she wanted. I'm sorry?
May I ask this question that she was just asking? Okay, she doesn't have to do it.
Come to the podium, state your name and your address for us, for the record.
Sorry to interrupt you. My name's Effie Volts. I'm at 536 Catfish Creek Road. Okay, I understand this may be phase one with the canals and the lakes. Okay, are the other ones eventually going to be charged? Are they going to be have sewers too?
We can't answer that question. DEB comes out with new rules and regulations all the time.
Okay.
And I know part of the, and I'm sure he can talk about the state statutes. And it talks about at such point, when a sewer line is run in front of your property, you will be required to hook up.
Okay, so, but at this time, you
I
don't know.
think that's the
not
way
in
it's
the
worded.
future.
He can elaborate on that a little more, but that's going to be years and years and years.
Okay.
The first phase is lakes and canals.
Okay, so this is the first phase. That's what I was asking. Okay, thank you.
And we do know that DEP is going to be budgeting more money every year. And like Kevin said, we are going to be applying for more grants every year to either continue the process or upgrade the process or help our homeowners hook up to it. I have two from 123 Loquat Road. I'm assuming your questions would probably be the same. Margaret Dwyer and Scott Schleiger.
Good evening, folks. My name's Scott Schrager. I live at 123 Loquat Northeast. First thing I want to do, I want to see if anybody here is actually in favor of a low flow. By raise of hands. Is there anybody in favor of that system? The question for you, Mayor. How much money does the town have to contribute towards this besides the grant money? Are they willing to contribute anything, and do you have money put away towards this project?
We do have money budgeted for different things.
And how much is that, sir?
I don't have it, I don't have any idea. But you got to understand, even if this thing gets approved, not everybody will be able to go on the gravity fit system.
I understand that.
If we go that way, some will, some won't. I don't have the answer yet on who that will affect and who it won't.
My question was, how much money does the town have right now for this?
I don't have any idea.
Perhaps you can get us that answer.
I don't know if, Kevin, I don't even know if you can answer that right now.
Someone perhaps can look that up for us. I'm sure you have a fund, right?
We do have a capital outlay fund. Any money that we spend is your money because all the utility money comes from you, all of the.
How much money do you have put away for this?
Our total capital account is about $700,000.
Thank you. I'd like to let you know that I was also a resident in Port St. Lucie for 10 years prior to moving here. Port St. Lucie has a low pressure system with a grinder pump in front of your house. Over the course of 10 years, we replaced 3 pumps, 2 check valves, and 2 control units on that unit. The city of Port St. Lucie provided all this service. None of this was the responsibility of the homeowner. They had full-time trucks, drivers, and technicians to cover the city. They also had 2 full-time employees that did nothing but rebuild grinder pumps. The expense involved in this type is massive. And Mr. Mayor, the community does not want a low-flow system. We ask you that you refuse the grant, give it back, and start over. I'd also like to ask you how you all are enjoying your last term in office.
Well, unfortunately, I hear where you're coming from, but probably 90% of you would not even be able to vote for us, so. We're just, we're here as stewards of your money. We're here to do the best job we can for the town of Lake Placid, and that's what we're going to do. But your elected officials are only elected from the residents of Lake Placid, the town of Lake Placid. That's all. Okay. Paula Draves? No. Paula Draves?
Hello, good evening. My name's Paula Draves, and I live at 240 Kumquat Northeast. And it's kind of hard to follow all these different people who have done such a great job. And I thank you for all your help. But I just have one question. Let me pull up my website here. I think, Joe, I think it was you that talked about the website, Lake Placid website. Was that you or Kevin? Okay. Well, when you go to the website, in order to sign up, you have to, one of the required fields is the form code. Please enter the form code that was found on the letter you received. Well, we received the letter. I don't know where the heck it went to, but I don't have the code. So when you talk about the lack of people who have signed up, I think that field that you are requiring, if you could eliminate that or send everybody out the new code so we could sign up and continue to get the information. I don't think it's required. Oh, it is required, right here. Form code, please enter the form code. I think that's all I have to say, and I don't know how you're going to get that or eliminate it, but I'd appreciate it however you do, because we would like to receive the information.
Yeah, if there's glitches there, we'll get them fixed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Have a good evening.
I don't know this last name, but Anna J., is it Shaft?
I'd like to give you my card too. Hi, I'm Amy Shutt. Me and my husband, a retired general contractor, moved here last October from Florida Keys. We came from Marathon. My husband's a sandblasting and painting contractor. He's actually worked in that sewage treatment plant. That was one of the last things he did before we moved here. He sandblasted and painted the about 8-year-old tank. We also had the exact same grinder pump. I've had this system installed in our yard. We also were staying on Darren Irma. We were there. It took over 2 weeks before the rest of the community could come back. We did witness the brown guppies in the canals. I have witnessed the sewage back up in bathtubs, all over the floors. The one lady was right, it was Key Colony Beach. Also, they had their sewer back up in the canals. Christmas Eve, they had brown guppies. But I almost cried when I found out that's who it was. I would like to put you in contact with our city people that was in office at the time that they were hired. We did have huge cost overruns, and I'd like to put you in contact with Mr. Matthews from Fish and Wildlife that told me our water quality went down because of leakage and because of the overflow problems, and when the wet wells leaked, it was bad. And I also lived with our neighborhood tore up for over 3 years. The cost of my house was $26,000. We had to pay for the line to be, well, I had an acre. I had water on 2 sides. We had a nice property. But we had to pay for that system. You also have to pay to have it, besides all the trenching, you have to have the underground electric run. It has to have its own separate isolated meter. And the alarm kept going off over and over. We ended up calling the plumber a week later to get him to fix our system. So, but the main reason I wanted to ask you was the questions. Let me find it. That I signed up before I even realized that's who was involved. Is McKees, we did start with like septic tank inspections, and our water quality improved greatly, because a lot of the septic systems, some they found were cesspits, and they had to replace those with the aerobic treatment systems, which the individual ones aren't really. When you look at the cost of hooking up the sewer and your monthly bill, our water bill used to be $40, $50 a month. When the sewer came, it went to over $200. Because, well, we had to irrigate our yards and, and other things. It doubled, tripled the bill. It went way up. Also, we were told that all this grant money the Keys had from the government, state of Florida, federal government paid, our cost overruns. I've seen tax assessments on people's properties from $35,000, ours was $12,500. The city, our taxes went up to cover the cost overruns and the cost of the continual maintenance and the problems with repairs on the systems. The other thing they did was, let me find out, sorry. I thought of something else too when I saw the one man here. The first time I went to the meeting for our city, for the neighborhood meeting for this, the engineer said he had sold his house on Mirror Lake. I know why now.
I almost cried when I saw what's involved here. I'm not happy. But the septic inspections revealed a lot in the Keys. A lot of times, people have drainage problems, especially, and I don't want everybody on the other side of the lake and the canals mad at me, but the older houses, we looked at some to buy. We were thinking about, before we bought the home we bought on the lake. We are on Lake Jude. And we also looked at some older homes in Lake Placid where we had a bigger lot, but they had cesspits. And some of them back then on the other side of the lake, the water was squishy. And you knew it, and their septic tanks were in the backyard. But what they discovered in the Keys when they started doing these inspections, when they had problems with drainage, they just take a pipe and they poke a hole through the bottom of the septic tank so they drain. And it makes them work better. And we kind of were told the same from some homeowners that we saw while we were looking from homes here. So I think unless you address the whole lake, and the current may flow from that north side over to where that half circle is, that is closer to the older homes and the smaller lots. That really, I think that needs addressed. And I know some properties, because they were a little further away and this and that, they did allow the aerobic treatment systems. The only byproduct from the aerobic treatment system is irrigation water that you can use for your lawn. And some areas, I know they put in native plants and things that helped absorb that irrigation water. And I think that was a big thing. The other thing I was wondering about is, I noticed there's no aquatic vegetation on our shore. And I talked to Fish and Wildlife, and I asked about trying to even get some, because I think it's pretty, and it would hold my sand in on our shoreline. And I know it's shallow at my boathouse, and at one time I saw pictures, the lake rim was like halfway up my dock, and now it's past my boathouse from the sand. But if something was done with aquatic plants that helped absorb nitrates and things like that, that would be a huge improvement. And I've also noticed that that guys that spray the yards for the bugs and the fertilizer, the all-in-one, I have witnessed them from my neighbor's yard. In fact, I fired the guy. He was on some contract from the past owner. He sprayed right up on the shore, in the water, everywhere. And I also saw some guy on an airboat that was spraying the grass and poisoning everything along the shore. And I was told that was a government thing where they kill the weeds and they put all the poison in.
State and government, yeah.
Yeah, well, I saw dead fish after that. There was a dead bass, and I saw guppies like gulping up at the top, trying to breathe. So I think there's a lot of things needs to be done. The other thing I wondered about was the orange grove across the street. And I love fresh oranges, but if it's sewage, they use raw cow manure. I mean, you can smell it. When they fertilize, plus the fertilizers of the orange grove, if what you're saying is true about the aquifer, I mean, that's only like 200 feet from my house. And my house is 205, and my septic system runs in the front yard, and my house is probably 150 feet from the lake, and my elevation is at 83 feet, and the lake is down, at 70? So,
I don't know.
I mean, a lot of the properties in our neighborhood are on higher elevations, so I don't know why you wouldn't want to start with the lower elevations where there's smaller lots. Have they considered any of these type of systems?
Do what?
Like the aerobic treatment systems?
I don't know what it,
It's an alternative to a septic type system, and it's way, way more efficient. In fact, it's the water that comes out of those is supposed to be more efficient than a treatment plant. No monthly bills. I know there's maintenance like every 1 to 3 years. I know a lot of people that's had them.
They reach about 55% nitrogen reduction with those, and the state has mandated that any new construction on a house built on less than an acre or on a modification of a current home, if you add more than 2 bedrooms, more than 1,500 square feet, you will have to go to those systems. And they're running right now about $17,000 to $20,000.
Well, the cost of the hookup was $26,000, plus I had the yard I had to rebuild, plus the monthly bill. And I still had
Won't be that
maintenance on
much
the
here.
septic.
It will not be $26,000 here. Things are
Well-
different in the Keys.
We had the cost of the plumber. The plumber was $7,500, he had to trench it. We had the cost of the electrician, that was like $2,500. And the same grinder pump in Marathon and the Keys. By the time we had that thing installed, that was like $15,000. And we had to rebuild, it was $3,000 out at the street because they had to put some roof thing in. And then we had to rebuild a whole yard. Yeah, it was.
Okay.
I'm not denying that it was in the Keys, but it will not be that much here.
Same company. So.
3 minutes.
Is it Cheryl Ellett?
Hi, good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Cheryl Ellett. I live at 121 Placid Drive. I received a notice back in October of 22. To date, I have not received any other type of notice. Only by driving around this past weekend did I notice 2 signs. One, flush the sewer project, and the second one was advising of the meeting this evening. I would like to suggest that additional notices are placed out off of Mirror Drive, near Publix, in the medians, some other places. Once again, if I did not drive near Lake June, I would have had no idea about this meeting. So just a little bit on transparency. It was said that 1,550 homes are slated to be connected. I think more people would have been here tonight and would like to attend these meetings if they're properly noticed. Also, if we could find a time that's good for everyone, because I know that other people work and have different times. So if possible, even a Friday night meeting, a weekend meeting, or some other type, or maybe a couple of different meetings, so that the message can get out as to what's happening. I am opposed to the pressure design system. I also would like to know why Lake June has a separate design engineer, and why wasn't the design engineer for Placid Lakes present tonight? I know that it was mentioned that you're at 90% of design, but you haven't figured out where the lift stations are gonna be. Are all lift stations gonna have a generator? Because when power goes out, we need to have a generator there that it kicks on automatically and that system keeps running. I don't want the lift station in my yard.
And that's the problem. Nobody wants a lift station in their yard.
Understood.
Or a generator.
Understood. Also, you're looking at grants. I actually ran a $15 million water sewer infrastructure project, so I'm a little bit familiar with what you're doing. I'm questioning why aren't water lines being ran at the same time as you're connecting the sewer or bringing the sewer in, because you're gonna have the roads torn up. The lady who mentioned about the price of cost going up, yes. For those people that have not ever had a water bill before, it's going to be a large increase. So make sure that that's known. Okay. Also, if you could look at grants, look at adding fire hydrants too. I think that's something that you might be able to tap into. Will you have to chlorinate the system? And what will happen in those times of need? They talked about the poly pipe. And I think it's really important for anybody that doesn't know about poly pipe, it's not a good thing. It fails and it fails quickly. So I implore you to do your homework about that. Once again, who's going to pay for the service calls on the pumps and the overhauls when that time comes? What happens, it was mentioned that the system would have a guarantee for 5 years. What happens when that 5 years comes up? I think these are all good questions we really need to think about, we need to know, we need to understand. Because some of the points sound great, but what happens after? We get down a road, and then it's a road that's not well-traveled or known. Once again, I'd like you to look at making the best decision for Lake Placid. I want to make sure that we have full communications. I really would like to speak to the engineers for the Lake Placid side of the project on Lake Placid itself. And I just love Lake Placid, and as all the folks do here. And I implore you to make the right decision for the residents and make sure that the residents are advised as to the next steps. Allow us to have a voice, let our voice be heard, and keep all the information in the sunshine. Thank you.
Mr. Vasquez? Oh, okay.
Good evening, everybody. This is my first time in one of these meetings, so please bear with me. I live in Placid Lakes. My husband died 2 years ago from COVID. I am living on Social Security and a small pension from my job. I cannot afford any more of anything that you guys can come up with. That's basically the bottom line. One of the gentlemen that spoke earlier was very clear on that about what the median income is for the residents in Lake Placid. And he is absolutely right. As to when this needs to be done, the federal government can wait. We can wait until the last minute and see what happens. These times are not the best times to start any new venture where money is involved because of inflation, because of the uncertainty of the economy, and because of everything else that's going on in the country. Now, as far as the project itself, I am totally confused because you guys, I don't mean you guys in a bad way, I mean, you are Lake Placid mayor and council. I live in Placid Lakes. I'm confused as to why the Placid Lakes person needs to be involved in an issue that pertains, apparently, to Lake Placid. So that's one question that is absolutely puzzling to me. The other question
that will be answered by our attorney, which is very simple, so go ahead.
The other thing is, I had not heard about anything like this until a week ago, that I saw the same signs that the lady is referring to. And I said, what in the world? So lack of transparency is key here. And I believe that we, as a small town, want to have the assurance that our elected officials are acting in a way where all the information that needs to be made available to us is made available to us, rather than wait until the last minute and say, oh wait, we forgot. And the one last thing is, how can we be asked to make a decision or go and say, okay, I'll go for it, when we don't know what the costs are? None of the costs are available. Nobody knows what the figures are. So if I don't know what the budget is for my home, how can I plan to buy a car, buy a new dishwasher? I can't. And the same thing goes for you guys. And again, you guys meaning in a nice way. Again, please remember, we elected, I didn't elect you, because I don't live in Lake Placid, but whoever elected you wanted to have you look out for the best interest of the citizenship. And we hope that even the Placid Lakes people can feel the same way.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, last name, Art Bolsover.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and guest. My name is Art Bousquet. I live at 3979 Placid View Drive. And I wasn't going to get up and speak, but I was a little miffed by the comment that you made that only people in the city vote for you and have representation. I live in the county, unincorporated county, yet I'm going to be put on this system and I'm told what I'm going to be done. That kind of miffed me, and I had to bring that up so everybody knows that, you know, there's people in here that don't live in the city but are affected by these, and they should be listening to those people also.
Yeah, no comments from the back. If you want to speak, you come
I
in.
live in unincorporated Highlands County, which is part of Highlands County, not Lake Placid. But my question is, what I wanted to bring up is I do live in the county, and I am on a well system, and I know sewer systems are usually billed by the water that you bring in, and you just get double charged by the water going out. How are you proposing to charge me or bill me for this system? I'd like to ask Mr. McCarthy.
So there's two options that we're considering, and I'll say considering. We're in design for a water line, but we don't have funding for that yet to go run along Placid Lake or Lake Placid. Placid View Drive, so that we have water available. The other option, and we currently have this today, is that there's two more options. We have wells now that we have a meter on, that we currently bill sewer, and they have a meter on the well, so we read that water, or you're on a flat rate charge. So there's three options. None of those have been decided yet, because we haven't decided anything about hookups.
Okay, so this would also include in the infrastructure a water line possibly going down Placid View Drive or other parts of the county that are not in the city, that aren't on the water system. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. All right, this time I'll bring it up to the podium. Charlie, you got any comments?
Well, I appreciate everyone coming tonight, and, you know, the frustrating part about bigger infrastructure projects is the unknown. You have to do this to find out this, to find out this. It takes time in order to do that, and there's decisions that have to be made along the way. You know, and I'm here to tell you that as one councilman, I'm trying to get it, and we all are trying to get it. With whatever we do, we're trying to not negatively impact people that are going to be hooked up financially. We're going to do everything in our power to keep those costs as low as possible, if not anything. So there's a lot that has to be decided yet, and information that's provided to us, and I appreciate everyone's time being here this evening and speaking how they feel. I just want to, as a community, all work together towards this, because at the end of the day, this is going to possibly, well, it will impact our lakes for the future. These lakes are, when I was a kid here, you could go to any of these lakes, and I could read, you could see 40 feet down, no problem. And the turbidity and the algae levels now, it's especially in the last 5 to 7 years, have gotten particularly bad, and it wasn't like that before. So, you know, one of the big draws to our community is our lakes. That is our identity, and we need to protect our environment. You know, it's critical, and it's not just about us, what we're doing for us, it also impacts other people. Unfortunately, not a whole lot is talked about upstream, and where a lot of this downsourcing is coming from is from bigger municipalities. It's coming up from Orange, Seminole, counties north of us. It's coming down to Kissimmee. They've done a lot of work to improve that, and there's a lot of work being done with the water management districts and everything, but as a municipality and as a community, you know, we're all trying to find solutions to make the environment that we live in our town, special and clean, and a place that people want to live and raise a family and move to and live and raise a family. So I appreciate everyone's time this evening, and I hope that we can continue this open dialogue. I will be open to hearing everyone. At the end of the day, I can, in anything of this nature, there's going to be times when we agree to disagree, and we're not going to please everyone on every decision we make. And my job is to do the best for the community that I'm called to serve. And anyone can feel free to get in touch with me and talk to me anytime they want about this project. But I look forward to working with everyone. And I'm glad to see there was a lot of interest in the attendance. It's the most attendance I've ever seen in here. And that Pledge of Allegiance, that was good to me. It was booming.
Greg?
Yes, thank you all for coming. I appreciate your time in the matter. I think you think that we're trying to hide something up here, and there's nothing to hide. The meetings are the second Monday of every month, and they're open to everyone who wants to attend. I'm surprised that this is a surprise to everybody. We're still trying to determine the information to make a decision. I don't know what to say. Nothing's been hidden. That's really all I have to say.
Okay.
Call me anytime if you want to discuss the matter. I'll be happy to fill you in with what I know. But there are no secrets here, and I have nothing to hide.
No?
I also appreciate everyone coming tonight. It is the most I've ever seen at a council meeting that I've ever attended, and for sure ever sat up here and saw that many people. But I'm glad to know that there's that much interest in the project. I agree with Greg, there's no secrets. We've been discussing this for a long time, but communication goes two ways. You have to get a paper. You have to read the paper. You have to read Facebook. You have to read a sign. I can't come to every door and rap on your door and say, by the way, this is happening. But all of a sudden, when the dollar figures hit, everybody comes in the door, okay? So I would just tell you, I am also open. I am also open to listening to anything anyone has to say. Sometimes I'm as confused as you are, okay? So please talk to me. I don't have any problem with that, okay? And we have nothing to hide. Thank you.
Greg, I'm sorry.
Yeah, again, as everyone has said, thank you for the investment of your time. A couple of the common threads tonight have been obviously the unknown cost. And frankly, that's a byproduct of the process we're going for, which leads to the transparency question. And so there has been a series of, I'm going to use the word debates about when do we share information and how much information should we have before we start putting press releases, before we have meetings, because it seems it's problematic to have a meeting and say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know.
There are still things today, as you've heard, that we do not know, that staff does not know. And so if there's a perception of lack of transparency, it's been because we've had to go hire consultants and engineers to start to gather that information so we could have these meetings, because I can't talk to any of these folks outside of this meeting. You know, someone says, let's make sure there's sunshine. That's exactly right. All of these conversations have to take place in the sunshine. Someone said, well, we were told the cost for the grinder installation would be this, that, or the other, and be borne by the homeowners. No one official ever told anyone that. That's not true, because that decision hasn't been made. No, people said, well, we've been told we're going to have to own and maintain them. Again, that decision has not been made. We have not even made the decisions exactly which of the projects we're going to go forward with, because we had to gain the information about, as you might imagine, you just heard someone say the estimate for just Lake June Point alone could be anywhere from 1.6 to north of $5 million. Obviously, that impacts how many projects we do. So I'll use the example of Lake June Point. We have to make a determination. Very clear, y'all would rather have a gravity system. Everyone understands that. We all wish we could have a gravity system. I wish when the subdivision, and I will tell you, I've built 2 homes in Lake June Point. I lived there for 14 years. I wish when Buddy Rogers put it together, he'd put sewer in at the time. I imagine that these engineering challenges may have been why Buddy did it 49 lots at a time to avoid putting the sewer system in at development. Today, you would never be allowed to do a development like that without putting sewer in the front end. We know that. So we're trying to correct an ill. One of our points of conversation has to be, do we do a gravity/grinder system in Lake June Point, knowing that 20% of the people, 20% of the homes in there, even if we invest the $5+ million in gravity, are still going to have a grinder. So, you know, that's a consideration. Where do we invest money? I can commit to you all that there have been a lot of conversations going on. As everyone said, there is no intent to be untransparent. We are still, staff, and then us as a decision-making body of the utility, are still gathering information to make questions. The final thing I'll talk about to the folks that live in Placid Lakes. Let's sum it up, you're saying, why the heck do you guys get to tell us what to do? I understand that sentiment. Well, because we operate, the town of Lake Placid operates the regional utility for this area. We are the only entity that runs a central wastewater system. So before we started down this road, we went to the Highlands County Board of County Commissioners. And they said, you all do this on our behalf, keep moving forward. They voted unanimously to say, yes, if it's the appropriate thing to do, we're gonna back you up and we're gonna go that route. And so that's where it's at. So I think you will see us have a continuing number of these meetings as we make some decisions, as we flesh out what some of these costs are gonna be, and as we try to do what we can with the money available. And what all we're trying to do is be responsible stewards of the money that the state of Florida, that's gathered it from y'all, has given our utility system, which is an enterprise fund. It exists solely on the revenue it brings in and provides the services with the revenue that it generates, and what we can do in regards to providing as much of an environmental bang for the buck as we can. So I guarantee you that none of us up here want to make this difficult or burdensome. We may have a conversation amongst the 5 of us up here, the elected officials. We may disagree in the future about whether or not we're going to pay for it, mitigate the cost of home installation, or we're going to have the utility own and operate the things, and that's a conversation you all should weigh in on, no doubt about it. But that's not even in my mind anyways, necessarily did we get another grant. We may very well decide that part of the project is hooking you all up and mitigating a substantial amount or all that cost, and just forego some projects in some other ways. So I've enjoyed listening to your comments and your questions. I would encourage you that if you have questions, you get in touch with Mr. McCarthy, and he'll answer them to the best of his ability, but I can tell you again, there is not an answer right now for every question you have, and that, to a large degree, played into the timing of why we did not have this scale of a meeting yet, because we would feel kind of foolish saying, we're starting down a path, but we can't tell you the answers to too many things yet. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Attorney?
I'd like to start with the why. How many people have lived on Lake Placid more than 70 years? Raise your hand. More than 70? More than 70. 70. I get to put mine up. I guess that makes me the expert on Lake Placid.
Speaking to the mic, yeah.
I can tell you that the lake I grew up on, was born there in 1952, sucks today. I walk out on it, I see it every day on my dock. I have seen the blue-green algae at my house, under my dock, and I'm concerned. It's a community I've loved. After law school, I chose to move back because I enjoyed that lake and growing up on that lake. The state of Florida has tested the water and determined that it is the only lake, it used to be the cleanest, it is the only lake officially declared as an impaired water in our community.
Are we talking about Lake Placid or Lake June?
I'm talking about the Lake Placid, formerly known as Lake Childs.
Not Lake June and Winter, where all this is happening.
Well, Lake Placid is also scheduled to be considered.
Feelings about the sewers around Lake June and Winter.
Well, I'm talking about Lake Placid, not Lake June and Winter. Lake June and Winter has similar issues, not quite as bad as Lake Placid from what I understand. Personally, I hope we can move forward with something. I've not heard any councilman up here say, put the cost of the grinder on the individual. We're still trying to get grants for that. Talk to the state today, that's one of the things they do grant. Talk to the state today, we can use part of the $40 million to pay for grinders so you don't have to, if that's the way you go. I'm curious, Joy, are you prepared, do you think Lake June Point is prepared to commit to a gravity system and all of the tearing up of roads that goes with that if we do not do a low pressure? So you would support that publicly? Where's the president of the Lake June HOA? Did she leave, or the treasurer? I'm just curious if, because it's going to be quite burdensome to tear up the road and put in a gravity system. No question, it'll last longer. Yes, please, would you? Come on up here and if you'd answer that one for us. I'm curious. Well,
I would support that. I'm the one of the houses that is below the street and would probably have to have a lift pump also. But for the sake of.
barely. Can you speak into that mic?
I don't know if it's on.
Even though my house is below street.
Even though,
There's Joy. Welcome to the club.
So even though my house is below street level, and I would probably have to have a lift pump, I would still support tearing up the streets for the sake of everybody else.
Bravo, because what I'd hate to see happen is kill a low pressure system and then nobody want a gravity system. So what's your position on that?
So again, Colleen Charles, I'm the treasurer on the board of directors for the Lake June Point Property Owners Association. I'm the treasurer. So I'm probably right now remaining only board member here. You pose an interesting question, and I'm not going to be able to give you an answer because we have 176 homeowners that would need to give us appropriate feedback. What I can tell you is after Joe came to our February meeting, we canvassed the people because we're like, well, maybe everybody wants it. So we have communications with all of our homeowners, and the resounding feedback was no too low flow for what I spoke about earlier and a lot of the other comments you got. People were not opposed to a gravity feed, but people want more information. Earlier, Marvin put up the map for Lake June Point. The comment that's come back is, why are you sending our sewage uphill from south to north? We have a natural elevation going downhill to the cul-de-sac, over to the Lake June parks and up Heartland. So some of the questions we have on the limited information that was provided to us on septic versus low flow is, like I said earlier, allow the different areas to provide some feedback after they understand what's being recommended, because maybe the numbers that were used on some of the houses were inaccurate, but nobody asked us. So I'm probably not answering your question like you would like me to answer it with a yes or no. No different than a lot of our questions, that may be yes or no. But what I'm saying is we are more than willing to work with council, with Kevin, with the engineers, to come up with a proper design that we could support, and we would have meetings with our homeowners to get that feedback that you want.
That's the question. Would you have those, would you, hear my question now.
I don't know who you are.
My name is Bert Harris. I'm the town attorney.
Okay, great.
I don't vote on anything, but I
No, you
talk
didn't
every
introduce
mayor
yourself.
lets me.
Yeah, that's fine.
What I'm interested in is, would you speak with your homeowners association, poll your members, and let us know, will they commit to a gravity system?
Only if we get the details of the type of gravity system, like we said. Is it going to be 3 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet? We can have homeowners meeting, and we would love to have, with the experts, to come do a Lake June Point only type of presentation. So we have a lot of people streaming right now, by the way. There are a lot of people streaming on this whole meeting, and the feedback has been very positive. So absolutely, we can commit to having a meeting with our homeowners, but we would like that meeting to present the findings and then allow us to ask questions. We've got experts that have put in sewer systems before. Allow them to come up with interchange with the consultants. And it's not going to be a one meeting, raise your hands, are you for it or not? It's going to be here's where we're at, here's what our thoughts, why did you do it this way? Did you think about this way? Yeah, that makes sense. So it may be a series.
I think we get the idea. Thank you.
We've told you before, we are not opposed to a sewer system. And I think few in the town are. We are opposed to a low-flow grinder pump system.
Very well. I think I'm done, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I'm going to go a little bit of a different direction. I got started in town government probably about 30 years ago. I started on the LPA, worked my way on to the council, and became mayor 22 years ago. But if you'd be willing to step up here and do what we do for pennies on the hour, you're welcome to it. I mean, I'm going to stay involved as long as I'm healthy, because I love Lake Placid. I love what we're doing. I think it's in the best interest of not only the town, but the county. This is going to affect me the same as it is for you. And what a lot of you are forgetting, if you're on a septic tank and it's several years old, what's it going to cost you when it comes time to replace that drain field? I mean, he can probably tell you, but you're looking at probably $6,000 to $7,000. Yeah, $7,000. And my house, I built in '92. I'm on a canal. I'm deeply in this. I'm going to be affected just as much as any of you. And my philosophy is, why would I want to spend $7,000 on a system that I know is going to fail again and have to pay $300-400 every time I get it pumped out, when I can have it hooked up to the town sewer? Yeah, I may pay a little extra, but I think it's going to be worth it, at least to me, to be on that system. Not everybody agrees with that, and I understand it, but we're here to make the best decision we can for the residents of not only the town, but the county. And to answer that one question, we do have the support of the county. We have a resolution signed by the county of Highlands County that we are able to go out and provide sewer to the residents who are on the canal and on the lakes, because they understand how important this is. So, you know, like, we'll get together, we'll set up some more meetings when we get more information. I mean, I don't know why everybody wasn't notified. We sent out almost 2,000 letters, but yet nobody seemed to have got them. I don't know where they went. But anyway, we'll have to be more transparent in that, and I'm sure Kevin will. We'll probably have another one of these meetings once we get more information. But again, I want you to know, we're not up here to hurt you. We're up here to protect you, and you. And I hope you understand that. So, okay. Now, what did you want to say, ma'am? Okay. Yeah, sure. Come on up to the podium, state your name and address.
Thank you.
We're here for the public. That's what we're here for. So we want to make sure we answer all your questions.
Charles Nilsson. I live at 425 Michigan Street, right in town. And I know I was on a couple committees before where they had to take some grant money and get some pump stations they needed. Okay, what I want to understand is, in the neighborhood right there around, all around that area there, around the circle and all, there's very real poor people living there. I mean, your average house is not even nothing compared to anywhere outside the city limits is. And how are these people going to be able to afford this? Because I know most of the people on my street, they're never going to be able to afford that. You know, I mean, it's like you're pushing people that are low income and struggling to buy their house and do that. I understand when your drain fields go out, our neighbors did the same thing, but it almost wiped them out, you know what I mean, just putting that in. So what is, in the past there were done things for, they had a committee they put together to say, hey, we need to get money to help these people in this area get their money.
That's what we're
We're
doing.
going to continue doing that kind of stuff too?
That's what we're doing.
Because that's what's really weirding us out in our neighborhood. It's like, everybody on my street, in Ohio Street said, we couldn't even come close to it, plus destroy our drain field at that, like that. You see what I'm saying? I mean, it's just, that's why.
You know, it's going to be one expense or the other, but like Kevin stated, we're constantly looking for grants. And the state is going to be, we're hoping to supply us with more money to be able to help the residents hook up.
Yeah.
But we won't know that maybe for what, 2 years, Kevin?
Okay, because see, me and my wife, we did that before.
1 to 2 years.
We were on a committee.
Once we get that information, we'll be able to pass it on. But until we get the information, we can't provide you with any answers. Okay?
But I was just saying, we were on the committee before, and we did that because we needed that,
But we will definitely,
Okay.
we will definitely put up some more meetings. Once more information becomes available, get it out there so everybody can be aware of what's happening.
I mean, we've given our time before, we'd be more than willing to help again. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
Thank you for allowing me this time. My name's John Purcell. I live at 309 West Waterway, that's in Placid Lakes. First of all, I love Lake Placid. I've only been here 6 or 7 years, and I love it. And I hear stories all the time of how the lakes used to be, and it would be great, and I'd like to see that again. In the presentation, a lot of the focus was on the blue algae, but there's no research or studies done of the effect after sewer systems were put in around lakes, that actually cleared up the blue algae. So my question is, by putting in the sewer systems, will that get rid of the blue algae in our lakes? And there's been no document saying that it will or it won't. So that's one of the questions. The other point I'd like to make is, one of the reasons I think there's so many unanswered questions is 2 years ago, 3 years ago, this was not a plan to put a sewer system in Lake Placid. It was a result of the grant. And so the grant has been pushing this project, which has been making it, or maybe limiting some of the decisions, rather than having a plan in place and then going out getting the funding, a plan that people sit to and agree to, and going out so you know what the costs are up front, instead of trying to constantly figure out things as they go.
Okay.
That's my...
Yeah, to answer one of your questions, and I'm surprised it didn't come up tonight, is fecal matter in the water is one of the big pollutants. And
but where is that coming from?
Well,
is it coming from sewers? Is it coming from the manure that's put on the orange field?
The tests have been indicated are human fecal matter.
Those are the studies that were not made.
Now, I will tell you, there is a beach in Placid Lakes that cannot be used because the fecal matter is over 600. And I've been told that your last test was over 600, and the county will not allow you to use it until it's under 200.
And we went back and asked the county, could they track where that's actually coming from? And we've not heard back from them. We'd like to know, okay, yeah, you're saying right there, but where is that coming from? Is it coming from one septic system? Is it coming from 30 septic systems? That's the questions we have for that.
It's coming from all septic systems. Anybody that's on a septic tank is contributing to the problem one way or another, whether you know it or not.
Well, it's still, there's no studies.
It's just one of those things, but we've got a problem with our lakes. A lot of people don't think we do, but we do. If we don't start doing something now, what's your property value going to be like in a few years?
I understand the lakes. We deal with this a lot. I'm on the Lake Placid Homeowners Association board member, so we get a lot of questions, and we know our lake is what brings the value. But I would like to see some studies of past projects where they went into a lake area and put new septic system or sewer system in, and it actually cleaned up the lake.
I don't know where you'd go for that, probably through the Water Management District or wherever, but they probably have those studies, I don't know.
That's the point I'm making. You point out the studies that, yeah, the fecal matter's coming in and causing the problem, but there's nothing to say, if we do this, this will take care of the problem. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Okay, one more.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was up here earlier, and my name is Art Bousquet, 3979 Placid View Drive, and I'm unincorporated again. And I just didn't want you to think that I was saying that I'm being taxated with no representation, because that's what it sounded like. I know that there's probably an enterprise fund, and I never said that I was against or for any of the systems.
I understand that.
I am for a sewer system in Lake Placid. I've lived in that house for 10 years. I've had a new house put on there, a new drain field put in there. They made me put 3, almost 4 feet more of soil to build the house up for that purpose. To answer this gentleman over here, every one of our lakes has blue algae. I do water sampling on Lake Placid for the University of Florida, and we take samples every month, and we get that data, and it goes to the University of Florida, and they send us information. And what I know for the 3 years that I've been doing this water sampling, that the nitrogen and phosphorus has been going up in the lake, and being able to see the depth of the Seche device has gone from, in 10 years, from 8 feet to now it's about 3.5 feet where you can't see. So again, I am for a sewer system, but I think the representation, to have the people to be able to come up here and speak about it. And when I got a letter in the mail saying, go to the Lake Placid website, look for the Lake, Save Our Lakes link, I entered all the information, and I look at it all the time, but the last entry was back in February 2022 when it told me to go there. So there was no information put on there since that point. And that's what I wanted to bring that up.
What is your name?
Again, it's Art Bousquet, B-O-U-S-Q-U-E-T.
B-O-U-S-Q-U-E-T.
I'm one of your neighbors. I want to talk to you after this is over with.
Yes, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we'll have time for one more.
Hello, John, I know you. At least you're the guy who got me to move here. So, my name is Chet Heath, and I live in Lake June Point. And first of all, as to whether there's a problem or not, go to Google Earth, take a look at Lake Placid, take a look at Lake June. You'll see the algae swirls there, and it's 4 years behind reality. Those pictures are up there. So there is a problem, I'll admit to that. The real question is, we want an infrastructure to solve this, but we have a choice of infrastructures. Let's look at what are successful infrastructures. Where we have a large project like this, there's usually, the complexity is centralized, so it can be maintained. The investment diminishes as you go out from that central point. So we'll have an expensive sewer treatment plant, no matter how we do this. But the question is, can it be maintained? We're not really looking at beyond the cost. It's, if you were to draw an analogy, what if every house had a private generator? And people would be running around with gas trucks to refill those generators and repair them. It's totally impractical. So one of the things I would like to see us focus on is, what is the total maintenance cost, total cost of ownership? And the other question was asked earlier, what's the return on investment? How much is it going to cost us to achieve this level of purity in our water? And there's similar questions, how much is it going to cost to solve global warming? Nobody knows.
It just goes on and on.
Give me an estimate, how many degrees are going to are gonna fall for every $1 trillion I throw at the problem. Nobody knows that. And it's something that you deal with on faith. There are a lot of objections to the process that's being done now, but that's not the point. We can design something that can be maintained, and I think we can get a handle on what is the cost of ownership of this system. You may say it's going to cost every resident $10,000. Then we'll live with that. At least we know what decision we're making. And thank you, guys. You're working hard.
Appreciate it, thank you. Again, I'll charge Kevin that once we get more information, we'll take a lot of this information, we'll go back, we'll digest it, see if we can come up with some more answers, but definitely when we get more information, or if Kevin and some of you guys can, if you can go out to the other subdivisions and maybe meet with the homeowners and eliminate some of their fears and anxieties, that would probably help us if you're able to do that, but I'll leave that up to you guys. But again, we appreciate all of you being here. We appreciate all the information, and God bless each and every one of you. And if there's nothing else to come before Town Council, meeting adjourned.